Chapter 10:21. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, the god immediately turned around and fled. Meanwhile, the demon wings suddenly appeared on Yi Xian's back, and then Yi Xian vanished on the spot. A ray of light silently appeared in the distance. The god suddenly turned around and smashed his fist forward, and an expanse of golden light surged out from his fist. Bang! Yi Xian's ray of light was forced to a stop, but a sword stabbed out from within it in the next moment. Hiss! The golden light was instantly torn apart by this stab, and then the sword continued straight towards the god. The god's pupils constricted when he witnessed this scene. He didn't dare to take Yi Xian's attack head-on, so he immediately flashed backwards, and he instantly flashed 300 m away. The god gazed at Yi Xian and was just about to speak when Yi Xian's execution heaven sword suddenly flew forward. Hiss! A strand of sword light flashed through the battlefield like a thunderclap, and everywhere it passed, space was torn apart inch by inch. The god's expression changed when he saw this attack. Because Yi Xian's attack was too swift. It was swift to the point he couldn't dodge at all. The god swiftly dodged with his right foot, pressed his palms together, and raised them up. Heaven Crusher! Bang! An expanse of golden light suddenly rained down from the clouds in the sky, and it instantly enveloped the god. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword arrived before him. Rumble! An explosion resounded through the heavens and the earth like a thunderclap. The expanse of golden light shook violently, and then some fine cracks appeared on it. However, it didn't shatter. Yi Xian stopped moving and sized up the expanse of golden light. It's very strong. Suddenly, the god spoke fiercely, "Human. You're going too far." Yi Xian gazed at the god. "I'm going too far? Are you joking?" The god stared fixedly at Yi Xian. A mortal sword. He knew why he'd lost to this human. A mortal sword. Yi Xian's sword Dao had attained the mortal realm. Most importantly, Yi Xian's equipment. This set of equipment was too terrifying. The god wanted to say something, but the demon wings on Yi Xian's back suddenly flapped. In the next moment, a tearing sound resounded. The god's expression changed drastically, and he swiftly flashed backwards. At the same time, he pressed his palms together and pushed them forward. Star shatter. Boom! In his hands, an illusory golden longsword pierced through the air. The moment the golden longsword appeared, the entire world suddenly became illusory. At that moment, the deity suddenly pointed a finger, and a drop of golden blood pierced through the air, directly entering the golden longsword. The moment the blood entered the sword, the golden longsword trembled violently, and the surrounding space began to disappear. At this moment, the golden longsword became even more powerful. In the distance, Yi Xian was stunned. Sword? It had been a long time since he had devoured a sword. Yi Xian did not resist. Not only did he not resist, he even put away his torch dragon armor. Hence, the sword easily pierced his body. Bang! Yi Xian's figure shook violently, and then a strand of formidable energy swept out from within him, causing the space around him to seethe. Seeing this, the godly spirit in the distance was stunned. What's going on? Yi Xian took a deep and greedy breath. The feeling of devouring something was truly comfortable. Yi Xian gazed at the god. Any more? The god stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and then he didn't hesitate to turn around and leave. He was extremely swift, and he vanished into the distance in the blink of an eye. He knew that he wasn't a match for this human. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot against the ground, and then the demon wings on his back shook violently. In the next moment, a ray of light appeared behind the god. Hiss! The space behind the god was instantly torn apart. The god's expression changed, and he swiftly turned around and pressed his palms together. As soon as he pressed them together, they formed a sword. But in the next moment, his palms were sliced off. Hiss! Blood sprayed. The god was horrified, and he intended to flee. However, Yi Xian's sword was even swifter. Hiss! The god's head was instantly pierced through. The god stared fixedly at Yi Xian, damnable human. How dare you disrespect a god? The corners of Yi Xian's mouth curled up slightly, and then he slashed with his sword. Hiss! The god's head instantly flew into the air. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. The blood was actually light gold in color, and it was different from a human's blood. Yi Xian sized up the god, and then he put his sword away and spoke softly, "Senior, what level of strength have I attained?" The god replied, "I don't know either because I have too many divine treasures. If I don't include the divine treasures, then I'm at the mortal sword realm. Of course, that isn't simple as well. However, if I didn't include those divine treasures, then it would be impossible for me to kill that idiot so easily. But with those divine treasures, that idiot isn't a match for me at all." He paused for a moment and continued, "If I include those divine treasures, then I can say that besides some top-rate experts, it would be very difficult to kill him with my current strength." "What kind of top-rate expert?" Yi Xian asked. "Arrow." The god answered. "Arrow." Yi Xian nodded slightly. Just as he was about to speak, the man on the 9th floor said, "People like Aluo can be killed easily. But there are others, such as the demon we encountered earlier, that he can definitely kill them. Of course, even if he can kill them, he will have to pay a hefty price. To put it simply, without the divine treasures, there are many that can be killed, but with the divine treasures, there are very few that can be killed." Yi Xian nodded, "I understand." With that, he opened his palm, and the Meru shield appeared in his hand. After the god died, the strand of will within the shield disappeared. Yi Xian dripped a drop of blood into the Sumeru shield. Soon, he established a connection with the shield. A moment later, Yi Xian sized up the Meru shield in his hand, and the corner of his lips curled up. This Meru shield was no weaker than his torch dragon armor. Divine treasure. Now that he had the Meru shield, the torch dragon armor, and the undying body, it would be hard for him to die even if he wanted to. Flesh to the limit. Yi Xian put away the Sumeru shield and scanned the surroundings. Finally, his gaze fell on the dried-up well. He hesitated for a moment, then jumped into the dried-up well. About an hour later, he felt that he had landed on the ground. Inside the dried-up well, there was another world. There was a Xiao Dao at the bottom of the well, and Yi Xian walked along this Xiao Dao. About half an hour later, Yi Xian arrived in front of a cave residence. The cave residence's door was tightly shut, and there was a rune seal on the door. Yi Xian carefully looked at the rune seal, and after a moment, he began to draw a talisman. He didn't choose to break it by force, but chose to break the talisman with a talisman. After all, he was a divine talisman master. Just like this, about an hour later, the rune array on the cave residence's door suddenly trembled, and the door slowly moved to both sides. After the door opened, Yi Xian walked in. Just as he walked in, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from the depths of the cave. Yi Xian frowned. He looked into the depths, but it was pitch black, and he couldn't see anything. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "Senior?" There was no response. Yi Xian said in his heart, "Senior, can you feel it?" There was no response. Yi Xian frowned. Then, he hurriedly immersed his mind into his body, but he discovered that the world prison pagoda had closed. Yi Xian didn't hesitate at all. He directly turned and left. And at this moment, the door in front of him suddenly closed. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks. Something bad was going to happen. Yi Xian was silent. And at this moment, the footsteps behind him were getting closer and closer. Yi Xian turned around and took out a moonstone. Very quickly, a ray of light spread out in all directions. And at this moment, not too far away from him stood a woman. The woman was tall and wore tight black leather pants, causing her figure to seem even hotter. Moreover, her hair was casually draped over her shoulders, and although it was slightly messy, it didn't affect her peerless beauty. Beautiful. The woman in front of him had the best figure and the most beautiful appearance he had ever seen. Her beauty was like the most outstanding work of the heavens, and no one could find fault with her. And at the corner of her eye, there was a small black mole, causing her to seem slightly evil. Demon. Yi Xian's first thought was that she was definitely not a god, but a demon from ancient times. The woman sized up Yi Xian, then smiled. Human? Yi Xian nodded. Human. Senior is a demon? The woman nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked, how should I address you? The woman looked at Yi Xian. Yen. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, one word? The woman said, Demon Yen. Demon Yen. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, then we're on the same side. The woman sized up Yi Xian. On the same side? Yi Xian nodded, and then he said, Senior, actually, I once obtained the inheritance of the fiend progenitor. The woman looked at Yi Xian. The inheritance of the fiend progenitor? Yi Xian nodded, and then he said seriously, I once met the fiend progenitor. After he saw me, he felt that I was extraordinarily talented, a peerless genius that was rarely seen in a million years. So, he insisted on taking me as his disciple. To be honest, I refused at first, but he insisted on taking me as his disciple. I didn't agree, and he wouldn't let me go. So, I had no choice but to agree reluctantly. As he spoke, he looked at the woman, so, strictly speaking, we're on the same side. The woman looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian said again, Senior, do you not believe me? The woman nodded, I don't. Very straightforward. Yi Xian smiled, I knew Senior wouldn't believe me. But, I have proof. With a command in his mind, the demon wings appeared on his back. When the demon wings appeared, Demon Yen glanced at Yi Xian's demon wings, but she didn't say anything. Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen, and then he smiled, do you believe me now, Senior? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian, are you sure you're a disciple of the fiend progenitor? Yi Xian nodded, I'm sure. I'm the real deal. Demon Yen suddenly opened her palm, and the demon wings on Yi Xian's back suddenly trembled. The next moment, the pair of demon wings suddenly broke free from Yi Xian, and then landed firmly on Demon Yen's hand, and then trembled violently. Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen in shock. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian, I still don't believe you. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, I can swear, I really am the fiend progenitor. Demon Yen suddenly said, I am the fiend progenitor. Yi Xian. Demon Yen patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly, swear, I'm listening. If you don't, I'll look down on you. Yi Xian, P.S. Tomorrow, I'll be getting married. I've been too busy recently, if there's anything I've neglected, please forgive me. Chapter 1022. The Fiend Progenitor. Needless to say, Yi Xian felt quite embarrassed at this moment. He hadn't expected that this woman would actually be the fiend progenitor of legend. Isn't this too much of a coincidence? I just randomly came to a dry well, and I got to know the fiend progenitor of legend? Meanwhile, the fiend progenitor suddenly said, why aren't you swearing? Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly and said, Senior, are you really the fiend progenitor? Demon Yen gazed at Yi Xian, you don't believe me? Yi Xian hurriedly said, I do. Of course I do. But Senior, why are you here? Demon Yen spoke indifferently, I'm sleeping. Sleeping. Yi Xian blinked, and then he said, Senior, you're sleeping here? Demon Yen spoke indifferently, can't I? Yi Xian smiled, yes, of course. He naturally didn't believe it. Sleeping here? Sleep my ass. Demon Yen is obviously trapped here. But, who was it that trapped her here? Meanwhile, Demon Yen suddenly passed the wings of demons to Yi Xian, this is for you. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, this belongs to you, Senior. Since I've met you, then I'll return it to its rightful owner. Demon Yen shook her head. I don't need it anymore. Yi Xian intended to say something, but Demon Yen smiled and said, Human, let me ask you a small question. Yi Xian nodded. Senior, please go ahead. Demon Yen smiled. Do you have a pen on you? The Tendo pen. Yi Xian's heart shook when he heard this. Demon Yen has definitely noticed the Tendo pen. Demon Yen grinned. Don't be nervous. I was just curious, so I asked. So, the Tendo pen really is in your possession? I'm quite puzzled. According to my knowledge, the Tendo has fallen into a deep slumber in the annals of history. How could you have her pen? You can't be her successor, right? Yi Xian's expression changed when he heard that. Although the demon goose had a smile on his face, he could feel a piercing chill coming from it. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that Xiao Dao had told him that the demon clan and the god clan had been tricked by Tendo. Could it be that this demonic goose was trapped here by the heavenly Dao? Thinking of this, Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, how can I be the successor of Tendo? You see, I'm not the chosen one. Demon Yen sized up Yi Xian and nodded. You're indeed not the chosen one. But you have a Tendo pen. Yi Xian asked, Senior, do you know Xiao Dao? Xiao Dao. Demon Yen narrowed his eyes. That woman. Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. So, this Demon Yen knew her. He finally understood. Most people wouldn't know Xiao Dao. Only top powerhouses like him, ancient figures, would know Xiao Dao. Demon Yen asked softly, Did she give it to you? Yi Xian nodded. Demon Yen nodded. I see. Yi Xian asked, Senior, do you know her? Demon Yen shook his head. No, but I've heard of her. Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, Who is she? Although he had known Xiao Dao for a long time, he had always been curious about Xiao Dao's true identity. Who was this woman? Many times, he had suspected that this woman was the Supreme Tendo. But obviously not. Demon Yen smiled. Even you don't know? How would I know? Yi Xian fell silent. Demon Yen suddenly said, I'm a little surprised that she gave you the Tendo pen. It's a godly item. It's very useful. Yi Xian asked, What useful? Demon Yen blinked. For example, unlocking the seal. Yi Xian glanced at Demon Yen and said nothing. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, You'll help me, right? Yi Xian immediately nodded. I will. It's my duty. Demon Yen said seriously, I'm not threatening you, am I? If you don't want to help, you can refuse. Really, we demons are reasonable. Yi Xian's face darkened. Reasonable? Not threatening? Like hell I'll believe you. Yi Xian hesitated and said, Senior, how can I help you? Demon Yen blinked. Are you really willing to help me? Yi Xian nodded. I'm willing. Demon Yen said, This is of your own accord and initiative. I don't owe you any favors. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Damn it, why is this woman like this? Yi Xian wanted to escape. But he wasn't confident. Not at all. This woman's strength was unfathomable. Even if he used the heaven and earth barrier that Xiao Dao gave him, he wasn't confident. At this moment, Demon Yen suddenly said, Are you trying to escape? Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen. Demon Yen smiled. You don't have to escape. If you want to leave, you can leave now. I definitely won't stop you. However, the ground here is very slippery. You have to be careful when you escape. Otherwise, you might fall to your death. Fall to my death. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. This woman. Demon Yen gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. There was still a brilliant smile on her face, and it gave others a very comfortable feeling. However, at this moment, Yi Xian felt a chill run down his spine. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, Senior, I'll get straight to the point. I have two small requests, and they shouldn't be difficult for you. Firstly, I want a few drops of your blood essence that can strengthen my demon's wings. Secondly, I want you to tell me where the vile spirit rock is. Just these two small favors, is that okay? Demon Yen nodded. All right. Yi Xian nodded slightly. Senior, how should I help you? Demon Yen smiled. Just take out that brush. Yi Xian opened his palm, and the Tendo brush appeared in his hand. He glanced at the Tendo brush and said, Senior, what should I do now? Demon Yen said, activate this brush and say, solve. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then nodded. His profound energy surged into the Tendo brush, and it didn't take long for the Tendo brush to tremble violently. A moment later, Yi Xian pointed the brush lightly in front of him. Solve. Bang. The entire abode suddenly trembled violently. In next to no time, Yi Xian noticed that something seemed to be disappearing swiftly in the surroundings. Yi Xian gazed at Demon Yen. Demon Yen slowly closed her eyes, and the space around them trembled violently. Around 15 minutes later, Demon Yen opened her eyes, and she gazed at Yi Xian. I did it. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, with senior strength, breaking this seal should be a very simple matter. Why? Demon Yen smiled. I can break it, but I can't. Yi Xian asked, why? Demon Yen smiled. I'm not telling you. Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Demon Yen opened her palms, and the demon wings appeared in her hands. She held the demon wings with both hands, and a mysterious power seeped into the demon wings from her palms. Around 15 minutes later, the demon wings suddenly trembled. Then, under Yi Xian's gaze, the demon wings grew larger and larger. Not only that, but another pair of wings grew out of the demon wings. 4 wings. Yi Xian was stunned. He looked at Demon Yen in bewilderment. This, Demon Yen smiled. 4 wings means that you're a high-level demon. High-level demon. Yi Xian asked, how many wings can I have at most? Demon Yen smiled. 12 wings. 12. Yi Xian was stunned, and then said, I only have 4 wings. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. These 4 wings are my demon wings. They are equivalent to the 8 wings of an ordinary demon. You're a high-level demon. Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, can you give me another upgrade? Demon Yen blinked. Sure. However, you have to give me the Xiao Ta in your body. We'll do it in exchange. Xiao Ta. Yi Xian's expression turned cold. This woman knew about the existence of the prison pagoda. Demon Yen smiled. You're not willing? Yi Xian smiled. Senior, you must be joking. Demon Yen nodded. Then let's leave. We? Yi Xian blinked. Senior, we? I'm not going the same way as you. Demon Yen said, aren't you looking for the evil spirit stone? I'll take you there. Yi Xian was a little hesitant. He didn't really trust this woman. This woman was like a demon. No, she was a demon. Demon Yen smiled. If you're not willing to go, then I won't go back on my words. Yi Xian's face darkened. This woman was really cunning. Demon Yen suddenly said, do you want to go? Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then nodded. Yes. Demon Yen smiled, and then said, let's go. Having said that, she grabbed Yi Xian's shoulder with her right hand. The next moment, the two of them appeared on the ground. On the ground, Demon Yen looked around, and the corners of her mouth lifted slightly. I'm back. Yi Xian hesitated, and then said, Senior, what do you plan to do next? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. Take a guess? Yi Xian shook his head. I'm not guessing. Having said that, he hesitated for a moment, and then said, Senior, do you know about protectors? Demon Yen smiled. They're the Tendo's followers? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Demon Yen shook her head. They're just some pitiful people. Yi Xian frowned. Pitiful people? Demon Yen smiled. Our Supreme Tendo isn't just your average level of power. If you meet her in the future, you have to be careful. Otherwise, you'll be tricked by her until there's nothing left of you. Trap. Yi Xian said, is it a trap? Demon Yen glanced at Yi Xian. Didn't you see what happened to us? Yi Xian said, will you take revenge? Demon Yen shook her head. No, because we were the ones who did it. We were the ones who schemed against her first, but we didn't expect that we would be schemed against instead. We brought this upon ourselves. Yi Xian said, Senior, did you just say that the Tendo is in a deep sleep? Demon Yen smiled. Who knows? Maybe she's lying. Yi Xian fell silent. Tendo. He had to remember that. After a while, Demon Yen brought Yi Xian to an extremely magnificent city. In front of the city stood an extremely tall statue of a man. The man held a dagger in his left hand and a golden square shield in his right. His eyes were dark gray. Demon Yen looked at the statue and smiled. God Emperor, I've come out. Someone wants your vile spirit stone. He said that if you don't give it to him, he'll make the divine spirit tribe disappear from this world. Yi Xian was speechless. That's a trap. Chapter 1023. Yi Xian's expression turned ugly. This woman was digging a pit for him to die. Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen. Demon Yen smiled. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. Yi Xian said, what if they take it seriously? Demon Yen blinked. Then beat them to death. What are you afraid of? Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the statue in the distance suddenly cracked open. Soon, a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian and Demon Yen. God Emperor. The one in front of them was the God clan's God Emperor. God Emperor looked at Demon Yen. Looks like you've recovered well. Demon Yen smiled. Why? Are you disappointed? God Emperor shook his head. Demon Yen, you and I both know why your Demon Clan and my God Clan ended up like this. Demon Yen smiled. And then? God Emperor said softly, this era is no longer the era we used to be. Whether it's your Demon Clan or my God Clan, what we need now is survival, right? Demon Yen nodded. What you said makes sense. However, some things can't be let go just like this. God Emperor smiled. If you insist on fighting, my God Clan will accompany you. However, Demon Yen, you should know that the 5th dimension tribulation is coming soon. 5th dimension tribulation. Demon Yen looked at God Emperor without saying anything. God Emperor smiled. There should be quite a few survivors from your Demon Clan. If we fight now, I can guarantee that my God Clan will disappear from this world. However, your Demon Clan will too. Demon Yen said, you mean you don't want to fight? God Emperor said, I don't want to fight. Of course, that's up to you. Demon Yen smiled and said, God Emperor, you've actually overlooked something. God Emperor looked at Demon Yen. What? Demon Yen smiled. She won't let the demon race and your divine race live in harmony. God Emperor shook his head. Back then, it was our fault for scheming against her first. And now, our two races are already in such a state. Will she still not let go? Demon Yen smiled. If we're still fighting, she won't care. But if we join forces, believe it or not, she'll toy with us to death. The God Emperor was silent. Demon Goose said with a smile, this heavenly Tao of ours, when it comes to playing with people, it is not an ordinary kind of formidable. God Emperor asked, you have a good plan? Demon Yen turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian hurriedly said, Don't. I can't beat that Tendo. Really, don't even think about it. Fight the Supreme Tendo? He wasn't crazy. That woman had toyed with the Demon Clan and the God Clan to this extent. Wouldn't it be suicide to go against her? God Emperor also looked at Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, God Emperor frowned. Him? Demon Yen nodded. Do you feel it? God Emperor nodded. I feel it. Demon Yen smiled. What do you think? God Emperor was silent. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly said, Seniors, your business with the Tendo has nothing to do with me. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian pitifully. Do you know that if that Tendo targets us again, we'll be played to death by her? Can you bear to see us being played to death? Yi Xian said in a low voice, Seniors, you're all afraid of being played to death by her. Am I not? Demon Yen blinked. You won't. Yi Xian frowned. Does the Tendo like handsome men? Demon Yen laughed. You little brat, you're really interesting. You actually dare to use the Tendo? Are you kidding me? You've got guts. Yi Xian said seriously, Seniors, I don't want to get involved in your business. Demon Yen blinked. We didn't ask you to get involved. Yi Xian was about to speak when Demon Yen suddenly said, Don't you want the vile spirit stone? With that, she turned to look at God Emperor. Give it to me. God Emperor hesitated for a moment. Then, he pointed his finger. A stone suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was the vile spirit stone. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian and smiled. Take it. Yi Xian was silent. Take it? How? This thing is too hot. This woman must be plotting against me. Demon Yen smiled. Don't tell me you don't dare to take it. Yi Xian said seriously, Senior, we have no enmity between us. Please don't plot against me. Demon Yen kept the vile spirit stone. Since you don't want it, then give it to me. God Emperor, Demon Yen sized up Yi Xian. Your physique is not bad. As far as I know, the God Spirit tribe has a special cultivation method called the Diamond Spirit Body. Not only the God Spirit tribe, but my demon tribe also has a cultivation method called the Vile Spirit Dead Body. It can be said that these two secret cultivation methods are the best in ancient times. How about it, are you interested? By the way, I can tell you that no one has ever cultivated both the Vile Spirit Dead Body and the Diamond Spirit Body at the same time. However, as long as you want it, you can realize it immediately. We will help you. With that, she looked at God Emperor. Right? God Emperor nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior Demon Yen, what are you trying to do? Can't you tell me the truth? Demon Yen said with a straight face, I see that you are gifted, a rare talent that only appears once in a million years. Therefore, I want to pass on the demon tribe's inheritance to you and form a good relationship with you. At the side, God Emperor suddenly said, I think so too. Yi Xian's face darkened. Seniors, do you believe this? Demon Yen smiled. I believe it very much. Yi Xian shook his head. Seniors, you've seen my strength. Look at me, I'm just like this. I'm very curious. What makes you think that I can help you fight against that Tendo? Demon Yen smiled and did not speak. Yi Xian shook his head. I want the benefits that Senior Demon Yen mentioned. However, I'm not stupid. Some benefits can be taken, and some must not be taken. Therefore, seniors, I'll take my leave. With that, he turned and left. One can be ambitious, but not too greedy. Demon Yen suddenly said, Human, you have an unknown karmic line on you. Yi Xian stopped and turned to look at Demon Yen. Unknown karmic line? Demon Yen nodded. Logically speaking, all karmic lines in the world are within this Tendo. However, your karmic line is independent and has nothing to do with the Tendo. Our idea is very simple. We'll use your karmic line to fight against the Tendo. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Senior, I don't think that's realistic. Demon Yen smiled. You're just one of our many ideas. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Demon Yen smiled. We're interested in your unknown karmic line. However, we're not naive enough to think that you can fight against the Tendo. That woman is too cunning. She's too calculative. Your petty tricks are a joke in front of her. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Senior, I'm not that bad, am I? Demon Yen shook his head. You've never come into contact with her. Others are calculative, but she's calculative. Back then, my demon clan and the divine clan were almost wiped out by her. Yi Xian was silent. He'd heard Xiao Dao talk about the Tendo. Xiao Dao had said that the Tendo was very smart and calculative. If even Xiao Dao had said that, then the Tendo must be very terrifying. At this moment, Demon Yen suddenly smiled. You're a special person. You have so many karmic lines on you. Logically speaking, with your strength, it's impossible for you to have lived for so long. However, you're still alive and well. There's only one explanation for this. You have a backer. Moreover, this backer must be very powerful. Is it that Miss Xiao Dao? Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. You only see that I have a backer, but you don't see the hard work I've put in. I've suffered a lot to get to where I am today. Demon Yen smiled. No, I think you've been able to get to where you are today not only because you have a powerful backer, nor because you've worked hard, but because you're too shameless. Your skin is truly invincible in the world. Even the supreme heavenly Tao would be subdued by your skin if it were in front of you. Yi Xian was speechless. Demon Yen continued, Human, we won't ask you to fight against the Tendo with us, nor do we want to cheat you. Anyway, the benefits are here. If you want it, take it. If you don't want it, we won't force you. And I have to remind you that if you cultivate the supreme secret technique of our two clans, your body will reach the legendary immortal level. Immortal. Yi Xian was silent. He knew that the 9th floor was the immortal level. Demon Yen smiled. How about it? Do you want it or not? Yi Xian smiled. Then, he put away the evil spirit stone. Then let me form a good relationship with you too. However, I'll say this first. I won't fight against the Tendo, because I can't win. Demon Yen nodded. Don't worry, we won't let you fight against the Tendo. As she spoke, she pointed a finger. A black light entered Yi Xian's forehead. Boom! In an instant, countless information entered Yi Xian's mind. The evil spirit dead body cultivation technique. After a while, Yi Xian's expression gradually became solemn. His body was very strong. Because he was already a sword, he was immune to all swords. However, he was not immune to anything else. Moreover, he didn't have any cultivation technique for his body. His powerful body was built up through various opportunities. As for the immortal body, it was definitely powerful. It was even stronger than the immortal body. However, it had a time limit. Now, this evil spirit dead body could make up for this shortcoming of his. Of course, he also needed the diamond body. Yi Xian looked at God Emperor. God Emperor pondered for a while. Then, he pointed a finger. A golden light entered Yi Xian's forehead. Soon, the cultivation technique for the diamond body entered Yi Xian's mind. Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian with a smile. God Emperor suddenly sent a voice transmission to Demon Yen. You want to use him to fight against the Tendo? Demon Yen smiled. I want to discuss the Tendo. I want to see if she will kill this human who has the inheritance of a demon and a god. God Emperor said, he can't fight against the Tendo. Demon Yen slowly closed her eyes. He can't fight against the Tendo. However, the person behind him can. God Emperor frowned. The person behind him? Is it that Xiao Dao? Demon Yen shook her head. No, it's a man. P.S. It's a wedding today. You don't have to be there in person. You can get a monthly ticket. If you don't have a monthly ticket, you can also send a congratulatory message. Also, the outbreak might have to be delayed. Let me say this in advance. The outbreak won't be cancelled. It just has to be delayed. Because I've been really busy lately. One more thing. Those who have designs on me, whether they are men or women, can give up. I won't do anything for now. Don't have designs on me. Chapter 1024. Diamond Body. Evil Spirit Dead Body. About 2 hours later, Yi Xian had completely comprehended these two secret techniques. Now, he needed to cultivate them, but he didn't have the conditions to do so. Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen and God Emperor. Demon Yen smiled and said, "Cultivate Diamond Body first." Yi Xian nodded, "Sure." Demon Yen smiled and turned to look at God Emperor. God Emperor suddenly said, "Follow me." Yi Xian followed God Emperor to a wasteland. On this wasteland, God Emperor opened his palm, and a seal appeared in his hand. He slowly compared it with his eyes and chanted a few words. Soon, the seal in his hand suddenly trembled violently. Then, the sky suddenly trembled, and soon, a powerful pressure spread between heaven and earth. Yi Xian's expression gradually turned solemn. At this moment, God Emperor pointed to the sky. Boom! An explosion suddenly sounded in the sky, and a bolt of lightning quietly condensed. Yi Xian looked at God Emperor. "Senior, are you going to use this lightning to temper your body?" God Emperor nodded. "This isn't any ordinary lightning. It's called heavenly lightning, and it was raised by my God Spirit tribe. In the past, this lightning represented a kind of tribulation, a tribulation to punish the human world. It's extremely powerful. When you use this lightning to temper your body, don't use any external objects to block it. Use your body." Yi Xian said, "Can I withstand it?" God Emperor looked at Yi Xian. "It's up to you. If you can withstand it, you'll be reborn from the ashes. If you can't, your soul will be destroyed." Yi Xian was silent. God Emperor said, "It's not too late to regret it." Yi Xian smiled. "What's there to regret? Come on." The God Emperor nodded and retreated to the side. In the next moment, the lightning bolt came crashing down. Below, Yi Xian's eyes were slightly closed. His body was trembling, because the divine lightning's might was too great. At this moment, he started to doubt his own body. Would he be able to handle it? At this moment, he was a little panicked. However, he had no way to retreat. If he didn't work hard, would Dao Yi have to rely on others for the rest of his life? Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes and roared, "Come!" Boom! The bolt of divine lightning descended directly onto Yi Xian's head. In an instant, Yi Xian's entire body split apart as blood sprayed out. Meanwhile, another bolt of divine lightning descended, and as it descended, Yi Xian's body actually exploded apart. But at this time, God Emperor suddenly pointed out with his finger, and a green light enveloped Yi Xian, instantly restoring Yi Xian's body. At that moment, another bolt of lightning struck down. Boom! Once again, Yi Xian's body exploded. Not far away, Demon Yen laughed and said, "You won't kill him, will you?" The God Emperor said softly, "How can a piece of scrap metal become a sharp sword without going through thousands of tempering? This is just the beginning." Just like that, Yi Xian's body was bombarded by the divine lightning again and again. During this process, the God Emperor would restore his body each time. Even so, it was still too painful. Too painful. At this moment, Yi Xian realized how fragile his original body was without the torch dragon armor and his immortal body. The sword body was only immune to swords, but it was really weak in other aspects. The divine lightning tempered his body. It had to be said that the divine lightning's destructive power on the body was too strong. Not to mention his body, even if he used the torch dragon armor, he might not be able to withstand it completely. The power of the divine lightning was too strong. Just like that, Yi Xian's body was bombarded again and then restored. In the distance, the God Emperor suddenly said, "Demon Yen, do you think that Tendo is really asleep?" The Demon Yen said with a smile, "Do you believe it?" The God Emperor was silent. The Demon Yen looked up and said softly, "Do you think this fifth dimension tribulation was caused by her?" The God Emperor shook his head. "I don't know." The Demon Yen said in a deep voice, "I've asked around about the situation outside. Right now, experts from various eras have gathered outside. This is not a good sign." The God Emperor frowned slightly. "Is it caused by her?" The Demon Yen shook his head. "I don't know." The God Emperor was silent. After a moment, the Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian, who was still being tempered by the divine lightning in the distance, and said with a smile, "This little guy is not simple. The 3 swords in his body are all at the peak of the common sword. The strength of the owner of these 3 swords is probably unfathomable. And this person's bloodline is extremely strange. I'm afraid it's only second to the legendary common bloodline. In addition, he also knows that woman from the pawn shop. Xiao Dao." The God Emperor said, "Xiao Dao. Is she still alive?" The smile on the Demon Yan's face gradually disappeared at the mention of Xiao Dao. Xiao Dao. No one knew how long this woman had lived. After a moment, the Demon Yen said with a smile, "Actually, there are many times when I suspect that the woman is Tendo. But obviously, she is not." The God Emperor said softly, "What do you plan to do next?" The Demon Yen said, "Live well. Live well." The God Emperor was silent. In this era, even top-notch super experts like them didn't have a sense of security. First, that 5th dimension tribulation. Second, Tendo. Moreover, there were super experts from different eras out there. In such an era, even Tendo wouldn't be able to live in peace. The God Emperor turned to look at Yi Xian. "Can you tell me your real intention?" The Demon Yen said softly, "My intention is very simple. I want to form a good relationship. Maybe there will be a good result in the future. Of course, he is very weak now." The God Emperor said in a deep voice, "This person is indeed not simple. But in terms of strength, he really doesn't count for much in the long river of history. I feel that Tendo won't even pay attention to him." The Demon Yen said with a smile, "You are very wrong. Actually, to be honest, if it weren't for Tendo's interference, your God spirit race definitely wouldn't have been able to defeat my demon race." The God Emperor was silent. The Demon Yen pointed at Yi Xian. "Tendo has been paying attention to him for a long time. Not only does he pay attention to him, but he also attaches great importance to him." The God Emperor frowned slightly. As if he had thought of something, he said in a deep voice, "Tendo's pen." The Demon Yen nodded. "He isn't heaven's chosen one, but he can use this pen. Do you still not understand?" Hearing this, the God Emperor completely understood. The Tendo pen was the pen of the Supreme Tendo. If Xiao Dao could use it, he could understand. After all, that woman was no less mysterious than Tendo. However, Yi Xian could also use it. This was very abnormal. The God Emperor looked at Yi Xian. Why would Tendo take a fancy to him? The Demon Yen said with a smile, "Maybe it's because of that man, or maybe it's because of something else. In any case, no matter what, it's definitely right for us to invest with her." The God Emperor said softly, "Indeed." Just like that, about half a month later, Yi Xian's physical body could already withstand the bombardment of the heavenly thunder. At this moment, his physical body was already deteriorating. At this moment, the God Emperor appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian said excitedly, "Did you succeed?" The God Emperor shook his head. "Now that your physical body has reached the standard, you can truly cultivate this diamond body." Yi Xian frowned slightly. "I haven't mastered it yet?" The God Emperor said, "It's not that easy to master it. Come with me." With that, he brought Yi Xian to an abandoned hall. Inside the hall, the God Emperor opened his palm. A golden fruit appeared in his hand. Yi Xian asked, "Senior, this is?" The God Emperor said, "God Spirit Fruit, a divine item of my God tribe. The energy of this item is extremely pure. It can greatly strengthen your physical body. In a moment, follow my fingerprints to circulate the diamond body." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." The God Emperor handed the God Spirit Fruit to Yi Xian. Just as Yi Xian was about to take it, the God Emperor retracted his hand and said, "This fruit is very precious, very precious." Yi Xian blinked and then said seriously, "I, Yi Xian, will forever remember the grace of the God tribe." The God Emperor nodded slightly. He handed the God Spirit Fruit to Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't stand on ceremony. He took it and ate it. As soon as the God Spirit Fruit entered his body, an extremely pure energy burst out of his body. Yi Xian was stunned. Because the energy was too terrifying. It surged through his body like a tidal wave. Meanwhile, the God Emperor suddenly said, "Circulate the cultivation technique and pour all the energy into your meridians." Yi Xian hurriedly circulated the diamond body, and it didn't take long for the energy to be drawn into his meridians. Gradually, his body started to glow a faint golden color. After around 2 hours, a powerful energy suddenly erupted from within Yi Xian. Bang! Yi Xian's body suddenly turned pure gold. Diamond body. At this moment, Yi Xian's body had reached a new peak. Yi Xian opened his eyes and clenched his right fist. A powerful energy gathered in his fist, and it was so strong that even he was astounded. So strong? Meanwhile, the God Emperor suddenly said, "This is the strength of diamond. Not only is your body impervious to all techniques, but it also has the strength of diamond. It can be said that your body is only half a step away from the undying realm. Once you enter the undying realm, ordinary godly items won't have any effect on your body." Yi Xian nodded. He was a little excited. Not to mention achieving the immortal level, even now, if he had the candle dragon armor, the only people in the world who could kill him were powerhouses at the level of a Luo. At this moment, Demon Yen suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Demon Yen sized up Yi Xian and smiled. "Amazing. Do you want me to try?" Yi Xian blinked. "How?" The corner of Demon Yan's mouth curled up. "How do you want to try?" Yi Xian said seriously, "Senior, I'm not a casual person." The Demon Yen walked in front of Yi Xian and gently hooked Yi Xian's chin with her jade-like finger. She smiled. "I'm not a casual person either. However, when I'm casual, I'm not a human." Yi Xian was about to speak when the Demon Yen suddenly pointed a finger at Yi Xian's chest. Boom! In an instant, Yi Xian's body cracked and blood splattered everywhere. The diamond body that he had just cultivated was instantly broken. And seriously injured. Blood flowed from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. The Demon Yen sized up Yi Xian and shook her head. "It's not that sturdy, but it's okay. It can withstand 20% of my strength. Just barely. Let's go. Follow me to cultivate the evil spirit dead body." Then she grabbed Yi Xian, who was heavily injured, and walked out of the room. The God Emperor suddenly said, "Do you want to heal your injuries first?" The Demon Yen didn't even turn her head. "Heal? We'll cripple him later anyway." Yi Xian. Chapter 1025. Not long after, Demon Yen brought Yi Xian to the top of a mountain. Yi Xian looked at Demon Yen with a solemn expression. This woman's strength was definitely not inferior to arrows. The demon ancestor. His intuition told him that even if he activated the immortal body, he would not be able to block Demon Yan's attack. As if reading Yi Xian's mind, Demon Yen smiled and said, "Don't be shocked. I've lived for at least 1,000,000 years. If I can't even defeat a young brat like you, wouldn't I be living like a pig? 1,000,000 years. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Senior, you've lived for so long. Don't you feel bored?" Demon Yen smiled and said, "First of all, most of our lives are spent in slumber. Therefore, we don't have much of a concept of time. Second, the current you has countless treasures, but you also hope to obtain better treasures, don't you?" Yi Xian nodded. "That's true. Man's ambition and desire are endless." Demon Yen nodded slightly. "We've lived for 1,000,000 years, but to us, we still want to live for a few more million years. Even, immortality. Immortality." Yi Xian said softly, "This should be your ultimate goal, right?" Demon Yen shook her head. "How can immortality be enough? Only with great strength can one live a free and unfettered life." Yi Xian smiled and said, "That's true." Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. "Do you know what an evil spirit dead form is?" Yi Xian shook his head. Demon Yen smiled and said, "The so-called evil spirit dead form is to use evil spirits to strengthen your body. If it was before, you wouldn't be able to resist the power of evil spirits. But now, your body has achieved the diamond body, so you can resist the power of evil spirits." Yi Xian said, "Senior, let's begin." Demon Yen smiled and suddenly waved her right hand. Boom! The space in front of Demon Yen exploded. Demon Yen slowly closed his eyes and muttered something. Just like that, a few moments later, shrill screams suddenly rang out from the pitch-black space. Hearing this, Yi Xian frowned. What kind of power is this? At this moment, a hideous ghostly face suddenly popped out. In the next moment, this ghostly face charged directly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression changed when he witnessed this scene, and he was about to dodge. However, a mysterious force suddenly pressed down on him, causing him to be unable to move at all. Demon Yen smiled. "Enjoy it." As soon as she finished speaking, the ghostly face disappeared into Yi Xian's body. Boom! Yi Xian's eyes instantly widened. A powerful force swept out from his body like a tidal wave. At this moment, a few more evil spirits pounced out from the pitch-black space crack. At the side, Demon Yen smiled and looked at Yi Xian. No one knew what she was thinking. Just like that, about 3 days later, Yi Xian had devoured an unknown amount of evil spirits, and his body was gradually transforming. At this moment, Demon Yan's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. The most crucial step of the evil spirit dead form is to turn your body into a dead body. Your body contains endless death energy. It's perfect. Come, activate the death energy and use it. Yi Xian nodded and activated the death scripture. Just like that, the death energy in his body suddenly exploded. Boom! Yi Xian's body trembled violently. A powerful death energy enveloped his body like a vortex. Demon Yen sized up the death energy around Yi Xian's body and said softly, "Such a dense death energy." Just like that, after an unknown amount of time, the death energy around Yi Xian's body gradually disappeared. At this moment, Demon Yen sealed the black hole. 2 hours later, Yi Xian opened his eyes. He slowly stood up and opened his palm. A thin layer of black light covered his palm. Demon Yen smiled. "Congratulations, your body is now immortal. Nothing can invade it." Yi Xian said solemnly, "Senior, what does this immortal body mean?" Demon Yan's lips curled up. "It means that you can take a beating." Yi Xian, at this moment, Demon Yen smiled. "An immortal body means that even if you die, your body can also be immortal. Moreover, your body can't be damaged by ordinary supernatural powers or secret techniques. Most importantly, even I would need to use 30% of my strength to kill you now. 30% of his strength. Yi Xian's face darkened. Senior, are you trying to hurt me? Demon Yen smiled. It's not embarrassing to be hurt by me. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior, what's above the immortal body? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. Above the immortal body is the immortal golden body. The so-called immortal golden body is truly immortal. Even Tendo can't destroy it. However, as far as I know, only 2 or 3 people have reached this level. Moreover, 2 of them aren't human. They are the ancestor of the demon clan and the boss of the ancient monster clan. With that, she smiled. Actually, you might become the 4th. Yi Xian said solemnly, Senior, if I achieve the immortal golden body, can I withstand your strength? Demon Yen blinked. Yes. However, you can only take a beating. You can't fight back. Yi Xian frowned. Why? Demon Yen smiled. Because your combat awareness and sword Dao haven't reached my level yet. Therefore, even if your body achieves the immortal golden body, you can only take a beating from us. Do you understand? Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Demon Yen opened her palm. Let me have a look at your Tendo pen. Yi Xian nodded. With a point of his finger, the brush of the heavenly way appeared in front of the demon goose. The demon goose sized up the brush of the heavenly way and said softly, back then, when this brush was in the hands of the heavenly way, it was truly capable of destroying the world. With that, she placed the Tendo pen in front of Yi Xian. I won't bully you. We are helping you because we have other plans. Of course, we won't ask you to help us fight the Tendo. Anyway, you don't have to do anything for us. Yi Xian shook his head. I will remember Senior and Senior God Emperor's kindness. In the future, if the 2 of you need anything, Yi Xian will do my best to help you. Demon Yen smiled. What a good do your best. What a crafty guy. Yi Xian smiled sheepishly. Senior, I can only do things within my ability. If it's beyond my ability, I can't do anything. Demon Yen nodded. I understand. With that, she turned to look at the sky and said softly, now that you have the inheritance of both a demon and a god, you can come back to play when you have time. If you encounter any threats, I don't mind helping you if it's within my ability. Yi Xian's expression froze. The demon goose blinked and smiled mischievously. All right. You can leave now. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then nodded. He was about to leave when he seemed to have thought of something. He stopped and asked, Senior, I want to ask you something. Demon Yen said, Tell me. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, The protectors want to mess with me. Do you know where their base is? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. I advise you to give up on this idea. That force is not inferior to us and the god race, and may even be above us. Speaking of this, she suddenly frowned. Why are they targeting you? It doesn't make sense. With your strength, it's impossible for you to stop the 5th dimension tribulation. You. No. With that, she suddenly pressed down on Yi Xian's shoulder and stared at Yi Xian. Something's very wrong. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Senior? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. After a moment, she let go of Yi Xian's shoulder and said softly, I understand. Yi Xian was about to ask when Demon Yen suddenly smiled. Kid, you're in trouble. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, can you help me solve this problem? Demon Yen shook her head. I can't. Of course, I'm not afraid of them. It's just that I don't need to become mortal enemies with them. Yi Xian was silent. Demon Yen patted Yi Xian's shoulder lightly. Live well. Believe in yourself. You can do it. Yi Xian, at this time, Demon Yen walked to the side. She looked down and smiled. The outside world is really chaotic now. It seems that I can't go out for the time being. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior, I want to ask you something. What was the era before the ancient era? Demon Yen looked at Yi Xian. There are two people who know. You can ask them. The first is the Supreme Tendo, and the second is Xiao Dao. Go ask them. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Then, Senior, I'll take my leave. After saying this, he turned around and disappeared into the vast horizon on his sword. As soon as Yi Xian left, a shadow suddenly appeared in the sky in front of Demon Yen. The shadow looked down at Demon Yen. Demon Ancestor. Demon Yen smiled. You're the Dao Protector. The shadow nodded. Your Excellency, the Dao Master has told us that we bear no ill will towards the demon clan. We also hope that Your Excellency will not interfere in the matter between us and that young man. Demon Yen smiled. I'm curious. Do you really think that he can stop the fifth dimension tribulation? The shadow fell silent. Demon Yen smiled. Don't worry. We've only formed a good relationship with him. That's all. The shadow bowed slightly. We've worried too much. After saying this, he gradually became illusory. At this time, Demon Yen suddenly said, I thought that your Dao Master was already dead. The shadow said, the Dao Master has always been here. Demon Yen smiled. That young man isn't simple. Don't fail miserably at such an easy task. The shadow said, we know that he isn't simple. But, so what? Demon Yen gave the shadow a thumbs up. Since you're confident, I wish you success. The shadow did not say anything else and gradually disappeared. After the shadow disappeared, Demon Yen turned to look to the right. Her gaze pierced through the starry sky and finally arrived at the dimension of nothingness. At this time, deep in the graveyard, an old man who was cleaning suddenly stopped. He turned to look and met Demon Yen's gaze. Demon Yen smiled. How should I address you? The old man said, Demon Ancestor. You've also come out. Demon Yen asked again, can I stay here and watch? The old man shook his head. No. Demon Yen narrowed her eyes. What if I insist on coming? The old man said, why don't you give it a try? P.S. I woke up late. Sorry. Thank you for your blessings and rewards yesterday. Thank you for everyone's support. Chapter 1026. I'll give it a try. As soon as Old Tomb Keeper finished his sentence, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Demon Yen looked at Old Tomb Keeper for a moment and smiled. I'll give it a try. As soon as she finished speaking, she disappeared. About an hour later, Demon Yen reappeared at her original position. At this moment, there was a rare trace of seriousness on her face. Yi Xian left the ancient battlefield directly. To him, there was nothing worth exploring in this place. Because he had obtained the highest inheritance of the Devil Clan and the Divine Clan. After leaving the ancient battlefield, just as Yi Xian was about to return to the boundless dungeon, a man in white appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was the man in white who was the Dao Protector. The man in white looked at Yi Xian and smiled. I'm here to bid farewell to you. Yi Xian frowned. You changed your Dao Protector to deal with me? The man in white nodded. Yes. Now the higher-ups have personally sent a Dao emissary to deal with you. Let me remind you, we only have 3 Dao emissaries. Their strength is second only to the Dao Lord and the Dao Lord. This Dao emissary will do anything to achieve his goal. You might be in big trouble. Yi Xian was silent. The man in white continued, I've had the most contact with you. You make me feel afraid. However, the more you do so, the more dangerous you are. Of course, this place is no longer under my control. You're on your own. Having said that, he turned and disappeared into the horizon. Dao emissary. Yi Xian was silent for a long time before he turned and left. Yi Xian returned to the boundless dungeon. He went to the pawn shop, but Xiao Dao was not there. Yi Xian waited for a while before leaving. He returned to Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian stood on the mountain peak and looked down at Fu Wenzong with a trace of worry in his eyes. At this moment, Shen Xinghe walked up to him. Shen Xinghe asked, "What's wrong? We might be in big trouble." Yi Xian whispered. Shen Xinghe fell silent. Yi Xian asked, "How are Xiaowen, Xiao Qi, and Wan Li?" Hearing this, Shen Xinghe immediately smiled and said, "They have already broken through." Yi Xian asked, "Karma?" Shen Xinghe nodded. "All of them have reached the Karma realm." Yi Xian smiled and said, "As expected." Shen Xinghe glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated look in his eyes. The Yi Xian in front of him, he could no longer see through him. After a while, Shen Xinghe said, "It's very chaotic out there, isn't it?" Yi Xian nodded. "Very messy. Experts from the Cretaceous era, the Cambrian era, and the Ancient era have all gathered in this era. This is more than just ordinary chaos." Shen Xinghe said in a low voice, "Are you worried that someone will attack us?" Yi Xian nodded slightly. "A force called the Guardians. They are targeting me. I'm afraid that they will attack you." Shen Xinghe was about to speak, but Yi Xian suddenly said, "Tell Xiaowen and the others to be careful." After saying this, she turned around and disappeared. On the mountain peak, Shen Xinghe's eyes were full of worry. Yi Xian arrived at the Worldwide Academy. In the courtyard, Yi Xian, Zhang Wenxiu, and the female teacher sat around the table. Zhang Wenxiu looked at Yi Xian. "What are your plans?" Yi Xian said in a low voice, "I want to send this study away." "Send it away." He had to admit that he felt more and more uneasy with this study on him because he felt many eyes staring at him. Zhang Wenxiu said, "Send it to the woman in the plain dress." "To the girl in the plain dress?" Yi Xian nodded. "She is the only one who can resist those people." Zhang Wenxiu said in a low voice, "You're going to send it yourself?" Yi Xian smiled. "I have to go myself." He would not feel at ease if outsiders went, and she would be even more worried if Zhang Wenxiu and the others went. Therefore, he had to go himself. Zhang Wenxiu glanced at Yi Xian. "They won't let you bring that treasure to the fourth dimension." Yi Xian shook his head. "If I want to go, they can't stop me. I'm afraid that they will target you." Zhang Wenxiu was silent. The female teacher suddenly said, "If you send that thing to the fourth dimension, will the problem be solved?" Hearing this, Yi Xian was stunned. After a while, Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Look at how stupid I am. I understand now." As he said this, he stood up. He stood up. "Take care of yourselves. We might have a lot of trouble from now on." After that, he turned into a sword light and disappeared into the horizon. In the courtyard, the female teacher said, "What do you think he's going to do?" Zhang Wenxiu did not speak, but there was a trace of worry in her eyes. She knew Yi Xian's character. This guy was definitely going to do something bad. Yi Xian returned to the boundless dungeon again. In the pawn shop, Xiao Dao had already returned. Yi Xian walked to Xiao Dao. He took out the evil spirit stone and placed it on the counter. Xiao Dao kept the evil spirit stone. At this time, Yi Xian said, "I want to find out something." Xiao Dao smiled. "Speak." Yi Xian said, "As far as I know, a Dao envoy from the Dao protectors came to find me." Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. "What are you going to do?" Yi Xian smiled. "I don't want to be beaten up." Xiao Dao shook her head. "Your current strength is not enough to fight against them." Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Xiao Dao, you're wrong. It's not me who wants to fight against them. It's them who want to find me." Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. So, you have to take advantage of the time when they haven't made a move against you. Do you understand? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't want to be so passive. Then, he took out 30 strands of purple gas and placed them on the counter. Miss Xiao Dao, we're not friends now. You can treat me as a customer. What do you think? Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian for a while and said, the Dao Protector's Dao Envoy is not as strong as Arrow. However, with his strength, he should be able to fight Arrow for 100 moves. If Arrow is serious, then 70 moves. If Arrow goes all out, then 1 move at most. Yi Xian went silent. The difference between going all out and not going all out is so big. Xiao Dao continued. It's not just one Dao Envoy. It seems that they are determined to get your study room. Yi Xian opened his palm. The world-dimensional study room appeared in his hand. He looked at Xiao Dao. Miss Xiao Dao, can I pawn this thing? Xiao Dao's mouth twitched. This guy is trying to trick me. Yi Xian was about to ask. Xiao Dao smiled. As long as you dare to pawn it, I dare to accept it. However, I have to remind you that you won't regret it. I can tell you responsibly that if you pawn it, you will regret it in the future. Yi Xian asked. Why? Xiao Dao shook her head. I can't tell you. This study room is not that simple. The Prophet is more powerful than you think. This study room is in your hands. I can only say that this is God's will. Yi Xian said. Is the Prophet scheming against me? Xiao Dao was silent. Yi Xian was about to take the purple gas. At this time, Xiao Dao smiled. Forget it. I have known you for so long. Other than being thick-skinned, there is nothing I dislike about you. I will give it to you for free. Let me know a bit. First, the Prophet has schemed against many people. But among these people, you are not included. Second, what he did is not a bad thing. He has no selfish motives. It can be said that he is truly selfless. He is a person that I admire in some aspects. Third. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Third, the Prophet has disappeared forever. He can't appear again. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Xiao Dao smiled. It means that in order to do something, he chose to sacrifice himself. And this sacrifice caused him to disappear forever. Even if he appears again, he will appear in another way. Strictly speaking, the former Prophet is dead. This is what I admire about him. For his own ideals, he is willing to shed his blood. Even if he dies, he will not hesitate. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, is he really dead? Xiao Dao smiled. I can't say that he is dead. I can only say that he is indeed gone. Yi Xian said, what is his purpose? Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. To completely destroy the fifth dimension tribulation so that it will never appear in this universe again. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Senior Xiao Dao, what kind of tribulation is the fifth dimension tribulation? Is this man-made or God's will? Or is it the doing of other people and forces? Xiao Dao was silent. Yi Xian said, you can't say? Xiao Dao smiled. There is nothing I can't say. This fifth dimension tribulation is a knot in people's hearts. Yi Xian, do you believe in karma? Yi Xian nodded. I do. Xiao Dao leaned back in her chair. Her eyes were rippling as if she was reminiscing about the past. Do you know what the universe looked like at the beginning? Yi Xian asked, what did it look like at the beginning? Xiao Dao smiled. It was when the universe was just born. Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. I know. At that time, the universe was just born. Everything was growing. The spiritual energy was at least 1,000 times denser than it is now. 1,000 times. Yi Xian's expression became serious. 1,000 times? Xiao Dao nodded. Don't think that I'm exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating at all. At that time, the universe had just been born. There were no cultivators or marauders. The universe grew naturally. It was very beautiful. At that time, Tendo was still very pure. She didn't know the evils of the world. But later on, all kinds of living beings appeared in the universe. At first, it was quite good. The universe became lively. Tendo was also very happy. But later on, things slowly became worse. Yi Xian said, fighting. Xiao Dao nodded. Yes. Later on, fighting and plundering began. They crazily plundered the universe. This was especially true for humans. When humans appeared in this world became worse and worse. At that time, humans not only liked to fight, but they also liked to plunder spiritual energy. Of course, it wasn't just humans. There were also other races. In any case, after these living beings appeared, the spiritual energy in the universe became less and less. At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. The fifth dimension tribulation is actually the tribulation of all living beings. This is the tribulation of all living beings. It can't be said that they are innocent. It can only be said that everything is karma. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, this tribulation will always be here, right? Xiao Dao nodded. It will always be here. If the Prophet wants to eliminate this tribulation, it will be very, very difficult. But it's not like there is no hope. At least, for now, there is still a bit of hope. Of course, that plain-dressed woman has to be willing. But for now, this woman is no less dangerous than the fifth dimension tribulation. I think the Prophet is playing with fire. If he doesn't play well, he won't need to wait for the fifth dimension tribulation. If that woman goes crazy, everyone will pass the fifth dimension tribulation in advance. Yi Xian. Chapter 1027. In the pawn shop, Xiao Dao took out a small account book and flipped through it, then said, let's not talk about the fifth dimension. Let's talk about the guardians. These guardians are not simple, but fortunately, they are not focusing all their attention on you. Otherwise, you. Speaking of this, she shook her head, no, even if they focus all their attention on you, they may not be able to kill you. Not to mention anything else, just arrow alone was enough to make the guardian suffer. And the powerful people around Yi Xian were not just arrow alone. Yi Xian said, no matter what, I don't want to sit still and wait for death. Xiao Dao nodded, that's a good idea. Passively defending is indeed sitting still and waiting for death. Saying this, she bent her finger and a white light went into Yi Xian's eyebrows. This is some information I know about the guardians. I'll give it to you for free. Yi Xian cupped his hands, thank you. Xiao Dao smiled, tell me about Demon Yen and God Emperor. Yi Xian said, they gave me their inheritance. Moreover, they seem to have made up. Xiao Dao nodded, they have also become smarter. Yi Xian asked, will they seek revenge on Tendo? Xiao Dao shook her head, they won't dare. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. Tendo has no evil intentions towards you. Yi Xian nodded, I won't find trouble with Tendo for no reason. I am not an idiot. Xiao Dao smiled, Demon Yen and God Emperor gave you their inheritance, so don't think too much about it. They won't have any evil intentions towards you. Anyway, if there are benefits, just take them. As for the consequences, don't be afraid. You are lucky enough to enjoy these benefits. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Miss Xiao Dao, you said that you have seen the original appearance of the fifth dimension, but you are not a Tendo, so who are you? Xiao Dao blinked. You have to pay for this question. Yi Xian was speechless. Xiao Dao smiled and said, to your five-dimensional cosmos, I am a guest. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Xiao Dao shook his head. Nothing. You should take care of your own business first. Yi Xian thinks for a moment, then nods. Senior Xiao Dao, I'm leaving. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. Don't go out. Hearing this, Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. Don't leave this door. Yi Xian turned around, but there was no one outside the door. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Dao. Miss Xiao Dao, what do you mean? Xiao Dao smiled and did not speak. Yi Xian was speechless. He knew that the matter was not as simple as it seemed. Yi Xian stood up. At this moment, Xiao Dao suddenly said, You have to think it through. Yi Xian nodded. Can I stay here forever? Xiao Dao was speechless. Yi Xian smiled and said, Since they are already here. Then let me have a look. With that, he walked out of the door. Just as he stepped out, the scenery around him suddenly changed, and before long, he appeared in an unknown space. The space Dao Law condensed between Yi Xian's brows, but he found that the space around him did not move at all. He could not control it. Don't waste your energy. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian turned around and saw a middle-aged man standing not far away from him. The middle-aged man wore a loose robe, and his hands were hidden in his sleeves while he wore a faint smile on his face. Yi Xian smiled. Dao Envoy? The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. I'm not a Dao Envoy. You're not at the level where a Dao Envoy needs to make a move. Yi Xian thought for a moment and nodded. Make a move? The middle-aged man opened his palm, and a black spear silently appeared. He slowly closed his eyes. In the next moment, Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. Bang! Yi Xian instantly retreated by hundreds of meters. Yi Xian looked at his chest when he had stopped. There was a dent in the candle dragon armor on his chest. What a powerful spear! Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. That spear isn't strong enough. It can't even penetrate this armor of mine. The middle-aged man smiled. What a good torch dragon armor. Come, let me see how many times your armor can withstand my spear. With that said, he suddenly disappeared. Extremely fast. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes and stabbed with his sword. The moment he stabbed with his sword, Yi Xian suddenly felt a powerful force in his abdomen. This powerful force instantly pushed him back by hundreds of meters. Before he could stop, a spear suddenly arrived at his throat. Yi Xian stomped his right foot. Boom! A mysterious force instantly suppressed him. Sword domain. The moment the sword domain appeared, the spear suddenly stopped. At this time, Yi Xian stabbed with his sword again. Chi! This time, the sword stabbed empty air. The middle-aged man's right foot was pushed back by hundreds of meters. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. The corners of the middle-aged man's mouth curled up. Again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared. At this time, the demonic wings on his back suddenly appeared. Boom! Yi Xian also disappeared. Rumble. Along with an explosion, Yi Xian and the middle-aged man returned to their original positions. There was a sword scar on the middle-aged man's face, but Yi Xian was completely fine. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian. The demonic wings of the ancestor of fiends. It looks like your fortuitous encounter is extraordinary. However, you rely too much on external objects. Yi Xian smiled. How long have you lived? The middle-aged man replied, many, many years. I can't even remember. Yi Xian smiled. I've only lived for a little over 20 years. Tell me, if I don't use external objects to fight you, what should I use? The middle-aged man thought for a moment and nodded. You're right. Come, let me see if your treasure can save your life. As he spoke, he suddenly took a step forward and stabbed with the spear in his hand. The space in front of Yi Xian exploded with this stab, and the spear tore through the air. The spear seemed to have come from ancient times, and it carried a primordial aura. The powerful force caused the surrounding space to become illusory. At this moment, Yi Xian flipped his left hand, and a golden square shield appeared in his hand. Summer's shield. Yi Xian held the shield in his left hand and pushed it forward. Boom! The Summer's shield shook violently, and a powerful force surged out from it. The middle-aged man was instantly pushed back 300 m. As soon as he stopped, the spear in his hand trembled violently. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian. Summer power. Your shield, Yi Xian smiled. I just got it. I didn't know its power before, but now I know. It seems like it's not bad. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you really have a lot of treasures. If I kill you, I'll make a big profit. Yi Xian smiled. Come, give it a try. The middle-aged man opened his palm, and the spear in his hand suddenly turned into a silver spear. On the tip of the spear, there was a silver azure dragon soul. The middle-aged man smiled. Come, let me see if this spear can break your shield. With that, he suddenly disappeared. The moment he disappeared, his spear had already stabbed Yi Xian's summer shield. Boom! Yi Xian instantly retreated. However, the summer's shield was not damaged at all. When Yi Xian stopped, the middle-aged man suddenly swept his spear at the summer's shield. Rumble! Yi Xian instantly retreated 300 m. As soon as he stopped, the space behind him cracked. Yi Xian raised his head to look at the middle-aged man. At this moment, a dragon's roar suddenly resounded, and in the next moment, a powerful force rushed towards him. Yi Xian grinned and raised his shield to block the attack. This time, he raised his shield with both hands and didn't use his sword at all. Rumble! An explosion resounded like a thunderclap. Yi Xian retreated by over 10 m while the middle-aged man was blasted 300 m away. He was blasted back by his own strength. Yi Xian gazed at the middle-aged man and smiled. Come, continue. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. That shield of yours is extraordinary. Yi Xian smiled. You're too kind. Actually, your spear isn't bad as well. It's just that your strength isn't enough. The middle-aged man shook his head and smiled. Yi Xian, I have to admit that I... At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand. Don't talk to me about those useless things. Come on, beat me to death. I beg for death. The middle-aged man's eyes narrowed slightly while he tightened his grip on the silver spear in his right hand, and a powerful force converged within him. At the same time, the silver dragon on his spear suddenly roared. The dragon roar shook the world. The smile on Yi Xian's face gradually vanished. The middle-aged man is getting serious. At this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly leaped up. In the air, the middle-aged man thrusted his spear. On the tip of the spear, a silver dragon danced and swept out with an unparalleled spear light, thrusting straight at Yi Xian. At this instant, Yi Xian felt a powerful pressure descend upon him. A ferocious smile arose on the corners of Yi Xian's mouth, and he raised his shield with both hands and raised it. I'll block it. The ray of light and the silver dragon smashed against the shield. Rumble! All of a sudden, the space around Yi Xian surged like a tidal wave, and a powerful force surged in all directions. Yi Xian held the shield tightly with both hands, allowing the powerful force to strike him. Just like that, after a quarter of an hour, Yi Xian's shield managed to block the attack. However, as a result, Yi Xian was forced back hundreds of feet. Yi Xian's face was a little pale. Although he had blocked the spear, it wasn't easy for him. In the distance, the middle-aged man's face was a little gloomy. He didn't expect the summer's shield to be so powerful that it could even block his spear. Naturally, he didn't forget that Yi Xian still had the torch dragon armor. How could he fight? A sense of helplessness rose in the middle-aged man's heart. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, I also think that fighting like this is boring. Why don't we change the method? I won't use the Summer shield or the torch dragon armor. Let's fight with our real strength. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian. Then what do you want me to do? Yi Xian smiled. It's very simple. Use your soul to fight me. We'll use our souls to fight fairly. What do you think? The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes. Are you sure? Yi Xian nodded. I also want to see how strong I am. I can't tell if I use external objects. The middle-aged man stared at Yi Xian. Are you sure you don't want to use the torch dragon armor and the Summer shield? Yi Xian said, I swear to the heavens in the name of a swordsman that I won't use the torch dragon armor or the Summer shield in the battle later. P.S. Brothers, postpone the outbreak. You know what happened in the past 2 days, you know. Chapter 1028. In the void, the middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Looks like you have nothing to fear. But it doesn't matter, I also want to see your trump card. As his voice fell, his soul suddenly left his body. The moment his soul appeared, Yi Xian's soul also suddenly left his body. And at this moment, the middle-aged man suddenly rushed towards Yi Xian with his spear. Obviously, he was afraid that Yi Xian would go back on his word. In the distance, Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He tightly gripped the executing heaven sword in his hand. When the middle-aged man came to 100 feet in front of him, he suddenly leaped in front of the middle-aged man. And at this moment, the executing heaven sword in his hand had already turned into the soul-suppressing sword. The moment the soul-suppressing sword appeared, the middle-aged man's expression instantly changed. At this moment, he knew why Yi Xian wanted to duel him one-on-one. Scheme. Although he was already mentally prepared, he did not expect Yi Xian to take out the soul-suppressing sword. At this moment, although the middle-aged man was horrified, he was unable to stop his move because Yi Xian had already arrived in front of him. The middle-aged man suddenly roared and stabbed out with his spear. This spear was his full strength. With this spear strike, it was either life or death. And at this moment, Yi Xian's sword arrived. Boom! The surroundings of the horizon shook violently. A powerful soul force shook in all directions like a wave, and the middle-aged man's soul directly stopped in place, unable to move. One sword soul fixation. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Just as he was about to speak, the soul-suppressing sword suddenly disappeared into the top of his head. Boom! The middle-aged man's soul directly disappeared without a trace. Yi Xian beckoned with his right hand, and the soul-suppressing sword fell into his hand. The soul-suppressing sword trembled violently. Little soul said somewhat excitedly, Young lord, great nourishment. Yi Xian laughed out loud. Then, take care of yourself. Little soul said, Young lord, can there be more of these souls? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, You little guy. Soul giggled and said nothing. Suddenly, Xiao Dao appeared in front of Yi Xian. Xiao Dao sized up Yi Xian and smiled, They underestimated your strength. Yi Xian said softly, From now on, it shouldn't be, right? Xiao Dao smiled. I don't think so. Do you know where the protector is? In other words, their headquarters. Yi Xian shook his head. Xiao Dao blinked. Give me the purple aura and I'll tell you. Yi Xian's face darkened. Miss Xiao Dao, we are friends. Xiao Dao calmly said, 20% off. I'll give you a 20% discount. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, You want me to go to the Dao Protector's lair? Xiao Dao smiled. It's not that I want you to go, it's up to you whether you want to go or not. Yi Xian said, If I take Arrow with me, can I destroy those Dao Protectors? Xiao Dao shook her head. You can't. If you take her, she can come back alive, but you absolutely can't. If you want to completely destroy the Tao protectors, you can only go to the plain-dressed woman. Plain-dressed woman. Yi Xian shook his head. He doesn't know where she is now. Of course, with his current strength, he can certainly find her. But the problem is, why would he find her? If he follows her, he will definitely be safe. However, he wants to rely on his own strength. He doesn't know when it started, but he has a special feeling for the plain-dressed woman. He doesn't want to rely on her for the rest of his life, and he doesn't want to become her burden. At this time, Xiao Dao suddenly said, "Do you know why the Tao protectors only sent one Tao messenger to find you?" Yi Xian said, "Because they look down on me?" Xiao Dao smiled. That is part of the reason, but the real reason is that they have a more powerful enemy. Yi Xian frowned. More powerful enemy? Xiao Dao nodded. They are pinned down. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Miss Xiao Dao, how big is the fifth dimension? How many powerful forces are there?" Xiao Dao blinked her eyes. "Give me the money." Yi Xian, Xiao Dao smiled. "Fine. Since you found the evil spirit stone for me, I will tell you a little for free. Firstly, the fifth dimension is not big, but it is not small either." "Why do you say so?" "For some people, the places they can go to are limited. Therefore, for them, the fifth dimension is very small. However, for some powerful people, such as me, the fifth dimension is very big. At least, at present, it seems to have no boundaries. However, the majority of the places are just empty lands. There are also some places that are forcefully opened up by some forces to live in, including this endless underground city." Yi Xian asked, "Miss Xiao Dao, who created this endless underground city?" Xiao Dao smiled. "Do you still remember the one-legged woman you met by the river that day?" Yi Xian nodded. "I remember. She created it?" Xiao Dao nodded. "That's her. However, there are only 2 people left who know that this boundless underground city was created by her." Yi Xian asked, "Who are you and?" Xiao Dao blinked her eyes and smiled. "In front of me." Yi Xian was stunned. "Just you and me. Miss Xiao Dao, who is she?" Xiao Dao smiled. "She is also an extraordinary person. Let me tell you, if it was not for me that day, you would have been killed by her." Yi Xian still wanted to ask something, but Xiao Dao said, "You don't need to ask. I can't tell you her real identity. Also, as for the major forces in the fifth dimension, you have come into contact with many of them. I won't break it down to who is strong and who is weak. I can tell you that among these forces, the void dimension is ranked second." "Void dimension?" Yi Xian asked in a deep voice, "What about first?" Xiao Dao shook her head. "I can't tell you. However, strictly speaking, this number 1 force might not appear in this world. Therefore, you can think of it as the void dimension as the number 1 force." Yi Xian asked, "Why won't the number 1 force appear in this world? Why is that?" Xiao Dao's eyes twitched. "Why are you so curious?" Yi Xian, Xiao Dao said, "In any case, you can think of it as the void dimension as the number 1 force. As for the void dimension, I can't tell you much. That place is not simple, so you better not go there. I think your good luck might be ineffective there." Yi Xian suddenly asked, "Which is stronger, the void dimension or Arrow's great desolate country?" Xiao Dao answered without hesitation, "The void dimension." Yi Xian frowned. "What if Arrow is added?" Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. "Or the void dimension?" Yi Xian asked again, "What about the plain-dressed woman?" "Ah!" The little Taoist suddenly roared and slapped out. "Pung!" Without any warning, Yi Xian was sent flying thousands of feet away by the slap. When he stopped, he spat out a mouthful of blood. That slap just now had directly injured his internal organs. It was too terrifying. At this moment, Xiao Dao suddenly pointed with her finger, and a drop of super spring water fell in front of Yi Xian. "Sorry, I couldn't help but hit you. Yi Xian, seeing Yi Xian's aggrieved expression, Xiao Dao shook her head and sighed. To be honest, sometimes you really need a beating. Do you know that sometimes I have the urge to beat you to death? Yi Xian's face darkened. This woman actually wanted to beat him to death. Damn. This is too terrifying. Xiao Dao suddenly said, "Why, are your injuries not serious?" As she spoke, she was about to put away the super spring water. Seeing this, Yi Xian hurriedly took the spring water and drank it. Soon, his body recovered at an extremely fast speed. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian. Don't ask me this next time. Otherwise, I'll beat you again. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then smiled sheepishly. I'm just curious. Xiao Dao shook her head. She's a person who doesn't abide by the rules. Do you understand? Yi Xian was about to say something, but Xiao Dao smiled. I'm not going to discuss it with you anymore. By the way, do you want to know where the Dao Protector's headquarters are? Yi Xian asked. Is it free? Xiao Dao shook her head. Pretend I didn't say anything. With that, she turned around and left. Yi Xian, at this moment, Xiao Dao stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian. Be careful of that Dao emissary. He's not as weak as that person just now. With that, she disappeared. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, and then he looked at the soul-suppressing sword in his hand. Little soul, how many souls do you need to advance again? Little soul said, I don't know. In any case, the more the better. Yi Xian smiled. Okay, I'll find more for you when the time comes. Little soul giggled. Thank you, young master. Yi Xian looked around, and the space around him suddenly shattered. Soon, Yi Xian appeared at the door of the Tendo pawn shop. Yi Xian walked into the pawn shop. Xiao Dao glanced at Yi Xian. What's the matter? Yi Xian said in a low voice. Miss Xiao Dao, I want the position of Dao Protector. Xiao Dao blinked. 100 strands of purple energy. Yi Xian didn't bargain. With a point of his finger, 100 strands of purple energy appeared in front of Xiao Dao. After Xiao Dao put away the purple energy, a white light entered between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Soon, a lot of information appeared in Yi Xian's mind. Tendo Starfield. The Dao Protector was in a very distant Tendo Starfield. It was at least 100 starfields away from where he was. Very, very far. After a moment, Xiao Dao smiled. They're in Tendo Starfield. The martial arts civilization there is also very prosperous. If you want to go, I can provide a teleportation array. If you cross the galaxy outside, it will take at least 10 years. But here, it only takes half an hour. Not only that, I can also pick you up. All of this only requires 200 strands of purple energy. 200 strands of violet gas can't buy you a loss, nor can it buy you a scam. But with me, I can send you to the heavenly law star field as quickly as possible. What do you think? Yi Xian's face darkened. Xiao Dao, are you really short on money lately? Xiao Dao blinked and smiled. Actually, I'm short on purple energy. It's slightly useful to me. Yi Xian tapped with his finger, and then 400 strands of purple energy appeared in front of Xiao Dao. The extra 200 strands are a gift from me. However, I can't do business with Miss Xiao Dao in the future. Because I don't have much purple energy left. Xiao Dao hesitated for a moment, and then she put the strands of purple energy away. Yi Xian turned around and left. Meanwhile, Xiao Dao spoke abruptly, I can't take benefits from you for free. I'll give you something as well. Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. Meanwhile, the 9th floor spoke abruptly, it's a trap. Chapter 1029. When he heard Xiao Dao's words, although Yi Xian was overjoyed, his expression was very calm. He turned around and said seriously, Miss Xiao Dao, you're too kind. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian and smiled, don't play tricks in front of me. As she spoke, she took out a square box and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled, what's this? Xiao Dao smiled, it's a small toy. Yi Xian opened the square box, and there was a small wooden figurine in the box. The wooden figurine was very lifelike, and it looked exactly like Xiao Dao. Yi Xian blinked, Miss Xiao Dao, what's this? Xiao Dao smiled, I was thinking that with our friendship, it's too vulgar to give you a god item or a god weapon. So, I'll give you a small toy that I carved myself. Although it's not a god item or a god weapon, it represents my feelings. Haha. At this moment, the person on the 9th floor suddenly laughed loudly. Yi Xian's face darkened, and no one knew what he was thinking. Xiao Dao blinked, you won't dislike it, right? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, and he put the wooden figurine away, why would I? Xiao Dao smiled, it's good that you like it. Go quickly. Have a safe journey. As she spoke, she pointed with her finger, and a teleportation formation appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Miss Xiao Dao, help me calculate whether my departure will be a blessing or a curse. Xiao Dao blinked, if it's a blessing, it won't be a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Yi Xian was speechless, and he didn't say anything else. He entered the teleportation formation, and he quickly disappeared. After Yi Xian disappeared, Xiao Dao shook his head and smiled. This slippery little guy, at that moment, a woman appeared not far to the right of Xiao Dao. It was the one-legged woman. The one-legged woman looked at Xiao Dao and said nothing. Xiao Dao chuckled and said, I've already let him go. In the future, he will only come once in a while. He won't come often. The one-legged woman still didn't say anything. She just stared at Xiao Dao. Xiao Dao walked towards the one-legged woman and said with a smile, perhaps it's good karma. The one-legged woman shook her head. Come on. With that, she turned around and disappeared. Xiao Dao shook his head with a smile, then turned and left. Tendo Star Region. This was an ancient star field, and this star field used to be the place where Tendo lived. Tendo lived in this place for countless years, but in the end, he disappeared for some unknown reason. Not long after Tendo disappeared, the 5th dimension tribulation appeared. As a result, countless people believed that the 5th dimension tribulation was the work of Tendo. Tendo Star Region could be said to be the most ancient star field among the countless star fields in the universe. After Tendo disappeared, a new force appeared here. Dao Protector. Very, very few people knew about this power because they rarely showed their faces. However, the current Yi Xian, because of Xiao Dao, knew a lot about this Dao Protector. This was also the reason why he dared to come to Tendo Star Region. If he didn't know anything about this Dao Protector, he wouldn't have rashly come. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian appeared on top of a mountain. The moment he landed, Yi Xian was stunned. The spiritual qi here was too rich. It was at least 10 times richer than in Fu Wenzong. What a good place. Yi Xian was somewhat amazed. This place was worthy of being the place where the Supreme Tendo lived. At this time, the 9th person suddenly said, go to the right, there is a city there. To the right? Yi Xian looked to the right, Senior, how do you know there is a city there? Don't tell me Senior is from Tendo Star Region? The 9th person said, I sensed it. Yi Xian smiled and then disappeared into the sky on his sword. Soon, Yi Xian arrived in front of an ancient city. The city was built on a mountain and surrounded by a large river. It could be said that there were mountains and rivers. Yi Xian looked above the city gate, Tendo City. Yi Xian said, Senior, have you seen the legendary Tendo? The 9th person said, do you think I have? Yi Xian smiled, I am curious about her. I want to meet her, but I don't know if she is a foodie. The 9th person sighed, Kid, that Tendo is not simple. You better not have any ideas about her, or she will play you until there is nothing left of you. Yi Xian nodded, I will not go looking for her. The ninth person sighed again, but I have a feeling that you will meet her. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, Sir, is your intuition accurate? The ninth person said, She has never disappointed me. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then smiled, So be it. Having said that, he walked into the city. There were many people in the city, and they were all cultivators. Although they were strong, they were not too strong. Yi Xian said, Senior, do you think the guardian will recognize me? The ninth person said, Under normal circumstances, it will take 10 years to get to the worldwide academy from here. In this world, there are only 2 teleportation arrays. The first is the teleportation array that the Tao protectors established themselves. The second teleportation array is a minor Tao. So, under normal circumstances, they would never believe that you would be able to come here. Yi Xian smiled, That is for the best. The ninth person said, What do you want to do? The corner of Yi Xian's mouth curled up, Nothing, I don't want to do anything, haha. Having said that, he walked into the distance. What he needed to do now was to understand the city of Tendo. Because of this, he spent a total of 6 hours before he finally had a rough understanding of the Heavenly Law City. In the city of Tendo, there were 3 major forces. Among them, the strongest was naturally the Guardian. However, the Guardian was not in the city. Therefore, strictly speaking, there were only 2 major forces in the city, the Sky Clan and the Tao Clan. Interestingly, these 2 clans claimed to be the descendants of Tendo. In the field of Tendo, they also had enemies, the extraterrestrial demons. Usually, the 3 forces would fight each other. However, when facing the extraterrestrial demons, the 3 forces would be very united. Yi Xian did not know much about the extraterrestrial demons. He planned to go back and ask Xiao Dao. That woman must know a lot of things. At that moment, the ninth person suddenly said, You want to sneak into the Guardian? Yi Xian blinked, Senior, do you have a way? There's nothing I can do about it. I just want you to give up hope. The Tao protectors have very strict requirements. They have 3 tests for those who join them. You can say that you can't pass even one of them, because you'll definitely be exposed. So, don't even think about it. The Guardian is not as stupid as you think. Yi Xian suddenly said, Senior, you seem to be very familiar with the Guardian? The ninth person said, A little. Yi Xian asked, Senior, are you from the field of Tendo? The ninth person smiled, Take a guess. Yi Xian said calmly, I'm not guessing. The ninth person laughed, Kid, you don't need to know who I am. In any case, I won't harm you. What do you think? Yi Xian nodded, Yes. At this moment, a bell suddenly rang in the distance. Yi Xian turned his head to look. At this moment, the expressions of the pedestrians in the city changed drastically, and they fled in all directions. Yi Xian frowned, What's going on? At this moment, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the sky outside the city. As the crack opened, a powerful evil aura suddenly swept out. Yi Xian frowned, What is that? The ninth person said, The extraterrestrial demons. Yi Xian asked, Are they strong? The ninth person said, To you, other than the top few, none are strong. However, I suggest you use your treasures less here, they're too eye-catching. Yi Xian nodded, Understood. At that moment, a voice rang out in the city, Everyone, defend. Numerous strong people in the city leaped onto the city wall as soon as the voice had finished. Yi Xian also leaped onto the city wall after a moment of hesitation. On the city wall, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the cracked space. Suddenly, countless black shadows appeared in the space. In an instant, the entire city darkened. Yi Xian frowned, These are the extraterrestrial demons? Yi Xian asked, Senior, what are these extraterrestrial demons? The ninth person said, Extraterrestrial survivors. Yi Xian frowned, Extraterrestrial survivors? The ninth person said, yes. Meanwhile, the experts in the city shot into the sky towards the extraterrestrial demons, and it didn't take long for the battle to begin. There were a lot of extraterrestrial demons, but there were a lot of people as well. Moreover, more and more people were rushing up the city walls to fight the extraterrestrial demons. Suddenly, an extraterrestrial demon appeared in front of Yi Xian, and he pounced at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to attack when a woman appeared in front of him, and she slashed with her sword. Hiss! The extraterrestrial demon's head flew into the air, and blood sprayed out like a fountain. After she killed the extraterrestrial demon, she turned to look at Yi Xian. Everyone else is fighting to the death, so why are you standing there? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, I'm scared. Afraid? The woman frowned. What are you afraid of? Yi Xian said with a straight face, I'm afraid of death. The woman looked at Yi Xian. How can a man be afraid of death? As she spoke, she placed the sword in Yi Xian's hand. Come, fight with me. Yi Xian looked at the sword in front of him, and he was slightly hesitant. Meanwhile, the woman suddenly spoke angrily, What? You don't even have the courage to pick up the sword? Yi Xian was speechless. Why is this woman looking for me? Right at this moment, another extraterrestrial demon pounced at him and the woman. The woman looked at Yi Xian. Kill him. Yi Xian, the extraterrestrial demon, came closer and closer, but the woman had no intention of attacking, and she just stared at Yi Xian. Pick up the sword. A man can die, but he can't be a coward. Don't be a coward. Pick up the sword and kill him for me. Yi Xian didn't speak, and he didn't attack either. The woman said angrily, Pick up the sword. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly spoke in a trembling voice, Miss, I don't know how to use the sword. I don't know how. I really don't know how. P.S. I'm already married. Those readers who are still single, do your best. If you really can't find one, find a man. Haha. Chapter 10:30. At this moment, the heavenly demon was already behind the woman. The woman gripped her sword and stabbed it with a backhand. Chi! With this stab, the heavenly demon's head flew off before it could even react. The woman turned her head and glared coldly at Yi Xian before disappearing into the sky. Yi Xian looked up at the sky. He had to admit that this woman was very strong. Her sword had not completely entered the mortal realm, but there were already signs of it. It could be said that she was half a step into the mortal realm. He did not take the sword just now because he was afraid of giving himself away. He was now a mortal sword. Once he wielded a sword, it would be very difficult to hide. Yi Xian looked around and turned to leave. He was definitely not interested in fighting against the heavenly demon. Yi Xian found a quiet place in the city and sat cross-legged. His purpose for coming here was very simple, it was to deal with the protector. Now, how to deal with the protector was a problem. At this moment, the roof above his head suddenly exploded and a heavenly demon suddenly rushed down. The heavenly demon's appearance was not much different from that of a human's. However, these heavenly demons' skin was dark purple and their pupils were not black but brown. In addition, they had a pair of horns compared to humans and their bodies exuded an unpleasant evil aura. The heavenly demon stared at Yi Xian and in the next moment, it directly charged towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian was expressionless. Just as he was about to attack, a flying sword suddenly flew in from outside the door. The next moment, the heavenly demon's forehead was directly pierced by the sword. Yi Xian turned his head and when he saw the person who had attacked, the corner of Yi Xian's mouth twitched. It was that woman again. It was the woman who had asked him to wield his sword on the city wall. At this moment, there was a man and a woman beside the woman. Both of them also used swords and their bodies exuded a very sharp sword intent. Obviously, all three of them were swordsmen. The woman in the lead walked in front of Yi Xian with her sword in hand. She sized up Yi Xian. You're hiding here? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before nodding. The other party naturally could not sense his aura, because he had already concealed all of his aura. Moreover, he had concealed it with the World Prison Pagoda. It could be said that ordinary people would not be able to discover his true cultivation level and strength. Seeing Yi Xian nod, the woman frowned slightly. Are you that afraid of death? Yi Xian glanced at the woman and said with a smile, Miss, this seems to be my own business. The woman looked at Yi Xian. Are you saying that I'm meddling? Yi Xian nodded honestly. Seeing this, the man next to the woman immediately said angrily, What do you mean? Yi Xian ignored the man and looked at the woman. Miss, how should I address you? The woman said, Tian Han. Yi Xian smiled and said, Miss Tian, I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. With that, he got up and left. At this moment, Tian Han suddenly stopped Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and said, I don't want to meddle, but your situation is similar to mine. That's why I said a few words. Humans cannot be defeated by their own fears, understand? Yi Xian nodded. Thank you for your teachings, miss. Tian Han shook her head. I know you didn't listen. Fine, do as you please. With that, she turned and left. When she reached the door, she suddenly turned and looked at Yi Xian. The heavenly demons have been defeated. We're going to counterattack. Do you want to go to the extraterritorial battlefield with us? The extraterritorial battlefield. Yi Xian was about to refuse. At this moment, the person on the 9th floor suddenly said, Go. The Tao Protector is guarding that place. You go. You can meet the Tao Protector there. Hearing this, Yi Xian immediately nodded. Go. The man next to Tian Han suddenly said, Tian Han, bringing him along is simply, Tian Han shook her head. It's fine. The heavenly demons have been defeated. Bringing him along for a while will be fine. With that, she looked at Yi Xian. Follow us. Yi Xian nodded and hurriedly followed. After leaving, Yi Xian raised his head to look at the sky. There was a pitch-black crack in the sky. Tian Han said, Let's go. With that, she, the man, and the woman next to her, rode on their swords. Yi Xian did not ride on his sword. Instead, he rode on the air. It was a simple flying technique. Yi Xian noticed that countless people around him were flying toward the spatial crack. Counterattack. Very soon, the four of them entered the spatial crack. In the spatial tunnel, Tian Han, who was next to Yi Xian, suddenly said, What's your name? Yi Xian looked at Tian Han and smiled. Xuanya. Xuanya? Tian Han sized up Yi Xian. You don't have any spiritual chi waves on you. Are you hiding your aura, or are you just a body cultivator? Yi Xian nodded hurriedly. I am a body cultivator. Body cultivator. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the man's eyes flashed with disdain. Tian Han's eyes showed a trace of sympathy. Yi Xian looked at the man. Is it embarrassing to be a body cultivator? The man said indifferently, only commoners would choose this path. Who would become a body cultivator if they are truly talented and capable? Yi Xian frowned slightly. Were body cultivators treated so poorly in this place? At this moment, Tian Han suddenly said, Li Qi, you can't say that. A truly powerful body cultivator is also very powerful. Rumor has it that in ancient times, there was a powerhouse who cultivated his body to the indestructible golden body realm. This kind of powerhouse's body could shake the heavens and earth and be indestructible. The man named Li Qi shook his head. Tian Han, that kind of powerhouse only belongs to legends. It's not like you don't know that here, a powerful body can only withstand a few more hits. It's useless. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Xuanya, is it because your talent isn't good? Or is it because your family is too poor and can't afford to cultivate divine abilities and secret techniques? Yi Xian nodded. I'm very poor and my talent isn't good either. Therefore, I can only choose to cultivate my body. Li Qi smiled. Tianhan, look. I'm right. Tianhan walked in front of Yi Xian. There's nothing wrong with cultivating your body. Work hard. When the time comes, I'll give you a mental cultivation technique so that you can cultivate qi. Yi Xian looked hesitantly. Is body cultivator really that weak? Tianhan nodded slightly. Ordinary strength in front of divine abilities and secret techniques is indeed somewhat passable. However, this doesn't mean that body cultivator is really weak. In short, you just have to cultivate well. Yi Xian nodded. At the side, Li Qi smiled. There's really no future in cultivating the body. As he spoke, he looked at the woman beside him. Tian Yan, what do you think? The woman named Tian Yan said indifferently, Li Qi, why are you talking so much? He's following us. He doesn't need your protection. Li Qi snorted coldly. That outer realm battlefield isn't simple. If there's one more useless person, don't implicate us. Hearing that, Tianhan frowned. Li Qi, why are you so narrow-minded? Li Qi said in a deep voice. Tianhan, you're good at everything except that you like to meddle in other people's business. Tianhan was about to speak. At this moment, a white light appeared in front of the three of them. In the next moment, the three of them appeared on a battlefield. Yi Xian turned to look at the surroundings. There were sky fiends and human experts everywhere. The sounds of battle resounded ceaselessly and shook the sky. Right at this moment, a sky fiend suddenly descended from the sky and pounced towards Yi Xian's group of 4. Tianhan, who was in the lead, raised her hand and slashed. Along with the sound of a sword howling, a snow-white sword light tore through the sky and directly killed that sky fiend. Tianhan looked at Yi Xian's group of 3. All of you be careful. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and rushed out. At Yi Xian's side, Li Qi glanced at Yi Xian and chuckled. You be careful. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished not far away. At Yi Xian's side, Tian Yan glanced at Yi Xian. You're pretending. Yi Xian blinked. What are you pretending for? Tian Yan sneered. Seeing so many corpses and sky fiends around you, there's no trace of fear in your eyes. There's only one possibility. You have something to rely on, am I right? Yi Xian smiled. You can say that. Tian Yan didn't say anything else. She turned around and vanished not far away. Yi Xian glanced at Tian Yan. This girl is really meticulous. Yi Xian collected his thoughts. He looked around and asked in his heart, Senior, where are the Dao protectors guarding? 9th floor answered, Dao Mountain. There are Dao protectors there. However, you can't go there like this. If you go there like this, you'll definitely be stopped. Also, there are experts guarding there. I can sense that it's very dangerous. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. At this moment, a sky fiend suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The sky fiend was extremely fast. He directly punched Yi Xian's chest. Bang! Yi Xian didn't move from his spot, but the sky fiend retreated explosively by over 30 m. Moreover, his entire right arm had actually split open. The sky fiend was stunned. Yi Xian gazed at the sky fiend. The sky fiend glanced at his arm, and then he charged forward again. He was extremely swift, and he arrived in front of Yi Xian in the blink of an eye. After that, he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian's head. Bang! The sky fiend retreated explosively by over 30 m. This time, the ground beneath him exploded when he landed on the ground, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood essence. Yi Xian gazed at the sky fiend. What are you doing? The sky fiend stared fixedly at Yi Xian, body cultivator. Yi Xian blinked. If you don't hit me, then I'll leave. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. At this moment, the Sky Fiend suddenly roared angrily. He picked up a long saber from the ground, and then slashed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian stopped in his tracks, and he turned around. At this moment, the saber slashed directly at his head. Bang! The saber exploded, and the Sky Fiend himself was sent flying. This time, he was unable to get up after crashing to the ground. Because his internal organs had been ruptured. Yi Xian glanced at the Sky Fiend, and then he stomped his right foot lightly. Bang! The heavenly demon immediately exploded. Yi Xian turned around to leave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up. In the sky, Tianhan was being surrounded and attacked by several Sky Fiends. Yi Xian didn't make a move, because Tianhan wasn't in danger. Yi Xian looked in the direction of the Dao Mountain, and his footsteps quickened. Just at this moment, a deafening explosion suddenly erupted in the sky. Then, a powerful aura suddenly swept down from the sky. Chapter 1031. Yi Xian looked up and saw a black vortex in the sky. With the appearance of this black vortex, the gazes of countless people in the surroundings shifted over. Yi Xian frowned. "Senior, what's that?" The ninth house said, "It must be a powerful Sky Fiend." Powerful. Yi Xian gazed at the vortex. Right at this moment, a black shadow flashed out from within the vortex, and as soon as this black shadow appeared, a shapeless wave of pressure suddenly shook the heavens. At this moment, the surrounding space began to tremble. Yi Xian frowned. "It's a bit strong." "Not just a bit," said the ninth house. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He looked at the black shadow. It was a man with a pair of wings on his back and a horn on his head. "It's a great Sky Fiend. He's very strong." "Great Sky Fiend?" asked Yi Xian. Sky Fiends are divided into different ranks. They're little Sky Fiends, great Sky Fiends, holy fiends, and ancient fiends. Ancient fiends have never been seen before, and they only exist in legends. Holy fiends are rare as well. There are only 2 or 3 holy fiends in the entire Sky Fiend clan. That's why a great Sky Fiend is considered to be someone important in the Sky Fiend clan. It looks like it's not a small matter. Yi Xian was just about to speak. Right at this moment, the sky suddenly trembled violently, and then numerous shadows suddenly floated out from the black vortex. The great Sky Fiend looked down and smiled. "Lin Dao, why don't you come out?" In the distant mountains, a green light shot up and landed in front of the great Sky Fiend. When the green light faded, a middle-aged man appeared in front of the great Sky Fiend. Lin Dao. The protector was a Dao emissary. A Dao emissary. Yi Xian looked at the Dao emissary. "Senior, this must be the protector, right?" "Probably," said the ninth house. Lin Dao looked at the great Sky Fiend and smiled. "Fu Jian, you finally can't take it anymore?" The great Sky Fiend called Fu Jian laughed. "I can't take it anymore. Let's collect some interest today." With that, he suddenly waved his right hand. Boom! The world suddenly trembled violently and 3 black vortexes appeared behind Fu Jian. As the 3 black vortexes appeared, Lin Dao narrowed his eyes and a trace of seriousness flashed across the depths of his eyes. Meanwhile, hundreds of afterimages suddenly flashed out from the 3 black vortexes. These hundreds of afterimages had extremely powerful auras. They were not ordinary Sky Fiends. The expressions of all the human experts below instantly changed when they witnessed this scene. In the air, Lin Dao said in a low voice, "Heavenly Fiend Legion." As he spoke, he suddenly turned to look at Dao Shan. "Tell them to send the Dao army immediately." Right at this moment, an old man appeared in front of Lin Dao, and he spoke in a low voice. "The battlefield here has been sealed off. News of us won't be able to spread." Lin Dao narrowed his eyes and looked at the talisman. "Looks like your heavenly demon clan has put in a lot of effort." Fu Jian smiled and said, "Lin Dao, I've played with you all for so many years. It's time to end this boring game. Kill. With that, the heavenly demon army behind him charged towards the humans below. Lin Dao spoke in a low voice, "Attack." Countless human experts shot into the sky and charged towards the heavenly demon army. However, they weren't a match for the heavenly demon army at all. Yi Xian was just about to leave when Tian Han suddenly appeared in front of him. At the same time, Li Qi and Tian Yan appeared in front of Yi Xian as well. Tian Han gazed at Yi Xian. "Don't go around. The heavenly demon army has set out. Just stay by our side, all right?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and was about to speak. However, a formidable heavenly demon suddenly appeared before them. Tian Han's expression changed slightly, and she turned around and swung her sword. The heavenly demon didn't dodge, and he just smashed his fist forward. Bang! Tian Han instantly retreated by 300 m. Li Qi and Tian Yan's expressions changed when they witnessed this scene. He's that strong? The heavenly demon didn't waste his breath at all and charged at Tian Han. Tian Han's eyes narrowed slightly. She held her sword with both hands as she took a small step forward, and then she suddenly swung her sword. Hiss! This slash caused a snow-white ray of light to descend straight down. In the distance, the heavenly demon stomped his right foot, and the ground instantly collapsed. Bang! A powerful force instantly blasted onto the ray of light. Bang! The ray of light shattered. Meanwhile, Tian Han suddenly appeared in front of the heavenly demon, and she stabbed her sword towards the heavenly demon's throat. However, the heavenly demon was even swifter, and his fist smashed onto her stomach first. Bang! Tian Han instantly retreated explosively by over 150 m. Li Qi and Tian Yan's expressions instantly became extremely unsightly when they witnessed this scene. This heavenly demon's strength isn't ordinary. The heavenly demon didn't stop, and he charged straight at Tian Han. Meanwhile, Tian Yan suddenly looked at Li Qi, who stood by her side, attacked together. As soon as she finished speaking, she charged over. Li Qi hesitated for a moment, and then he drew his sword and stabbed forward swiftly. The heavenly demon directly punched out. Bang! Tian Yan and Li Qi were instantly blasted flying, whereas the heavenly demon paid no attention to them and charged straight at Tian Han. Tian Yan charged forward once more when she witnessed this scene. Li Qi was hesitating instead because the sword in his hand had been blasted into pieces by the heavenly demon that stood before him just now. He knew that he wasn't a match for this heavenly demon. Meanwhile, the heavenly demon had arrived in front of Tian Han. Tian Han suddenly roared furiously, leaped up, and slashed down with her sword once more. This swing of her sword seemed as if she intended to slash the heavens apart. Bang! Along with the explosion of a ray of light, the heavenly demon was blasted back. But in the next moment, a powerful ray of black light suddenly erupted from within the heavenly demon, and it instantly swept towards Tian Han. Tian Han's expression changed slightly, and the sword in her hand shook before a ray of light slashed forward. Rumble. Two formidable forces erupted abruptly, causing the heavenly demon and Tian Han to retreat repeatedly. Right at this moment, another formidable heavenly demon suddenly appeared in front of Tian Han. Tian Han's expression changed drastically when she saw this scene. However, Yi Xian stood in front of Tian Han at this critical moment, and the heavenly demon's fist smashed onto Yi Xian's chest. Bang! Yi Xian's body trembled violently, and he didn't move at all. On the other hand, the heavenly demon retreated explosively by almost 300 m. Everyone was stunned at the sight of this scene. Tian Han, who stood before Yi Xian, was stunned on the spot as well. Yi Xian is fine. The distant heavenly demon stared fixedly at Yi Xian, body cultivator. Yi Xian nodded with a smile, body cultivator. The heavenly demon suddenly vanished. In the distance, Yi Xian didn't move. Meanwhile, the heavenly demon's fist smashed towards his throat. Yi Xian still didn't dodge and allowed the heavenly demon's fist to strike his throat. Boom! With the sound of an explosion, the Sky Fiend retreated hundreds of feet, and as soon as he stopped, his physical body exploded. Everyone, Yi Xian looked at the heavenly demon who was only left with his soul and said with a smile, "Again?" The heavenly demon took a deep look at Yi Xian before turning to leave. He knew that he had met a tough opponent. As for the other powerful heavenly demon, he didn't attack either. He turned and disappeared not far away. Yi Xian smiled and turned to leave. Right then, Tianhan and the other two stood in front of Yi Xian. Tianhan looked at Yi Xian. "You hid your strength." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Tianhan, I told you that I'm a body cultivator, but you," with that said, he smiled and didn't say a word. Tianhan shook her head. "I was blind." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Tianhan, it's very dangerous here now. You should find a place to hide first." Tianhan frowned slightly. "What about you?" Yi Xian blinked. "I want to hide too." Tianhan looked at Yi Xian. "You're so strong. Why don't you fight against the heavenly demons with us?" Yi Xian fell silent. Fight against the heavenly demons? He had no feud with the heavenly demons, so he naturally wouldn't target them. His only goal here was to deal with the Tao Protector. That was Yi Xian's true enemy. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Miss Tianhan, I have other things to do." Tianhan hesitated for a moment before sighing softly. "Everyone has their own aspirations. I won't force you. You're on your own." Yi Xian nodded. "Take care, Miss Tianhan." With that said, he turned to leave. At this moment, Li Qi suddenly said, "Selfish person." Yi Xian ignored him. Seeing that, Li Qi said angrily, "Xuanya, you're a selfish person." Yi Xian stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Li Qi. "Are you selfless? If you're selfless, why don't you go and fight the heavenly demons with your life? Don't think I didn't see that you were about to escape just now." Hearing that, Li Qi's face became somewhat gloomy. "Xuanya, you're clearly so strong, but you've been hiding and not making a move. If this isn't selfish, then what is? Moreover, you clearly had the ability to kill those two heavenly demons just now, but you intentionally let them go. What are your intentions? Could it be that you're a spy from the heavenly demons? You." Right then, Yi Xian suddenly appeared in front of Li Qi. Pa! Before Li Qi could react, his entire body was sent flying. This time, he flew for hundreds of feet. Li Qi had just landed on the ground when Yi Xian stepped on his chest. He looked down at Li Qi. "I didn't hear what you said just now clearly. Can you repeat it to me again?" With that said, he exerted force with his foot. Pooh! Li Qi instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. He stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and at this moment, Yi Xian exerted force with his foot again. At this moment, Li Qi's body directly split apart. Seeing this, Tianhan's expression changed, and she was about to make a move, but at this moment, a powerful aura suddenly enveloped her, and this powerful aura directly caused her to be unable to move. Reason? He didn't want to reason anymore. Never reason with someone who wants to mess with you. To deal with such people, you have to use your fists. In the distance, Tianhan's pupils constricted slightly. The strength of this aura greatly exceeded her expectations. At this moment, Yi Xian began to exert force with his foot, and Li Qi's body had already completely split apart. After smelling the aura of death, Li Qi's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly said, "Brother Xian, I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's my fault. I was the one who caused trouble for no reason. I was dissatisfied with you, so I intentionally caused trouble for you. It's all my fault. Brother Xian, please be magnanimous." At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly kicked him. Bang! Li Qi's body directly exploded, and his divine soul was destroyed. P.S. The days without healthcare are a little lost. Chapter 1032. Benevolence? Humans can be benevolent, but it has to be differentiated. Being benevolent to some people is being cruel to oneself. Seeing Yi Xian stomp Li Qi to death, Tian Han and Tian Yen were stunned. Killed just like that? Both of them had never imagined that Yi Xian would actually kill Li Qi just like that. Not to mention them, even Li Qi himself did not expect that he would be killed just like that. Didn't he already admit his mistake? Why did he still want to kill him? There was no answer. After Yi Xian killed Li Qi, he turned around and left. Just at this moment, Tian Han blocked in front of Yi Xian as she looked at Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian smiled. He had evil intentions towards me. Tian Han said solemnly, but he did not hurt you. Yi Xian blinked. Why must I wait until he hurt me before I can take revenge on him? Why can't I kill him before he has the ability to hurt me? Tian Han looked at Yi Xian. You're very cold-blooded. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Miss Tian Han, you have a kind nature. As far as I'm concerned, I like your nature and like to be friends with people like you. But you have to understand, you have a kind nature, but it doesn't mean others are kind. Also, that Li Qi deliberately found trouble with me. I'm not his father, so why should I spoil him? Tian Han was silent. Yi Xian smiled. If you want to take revenge on me, you can do it now. Tian Han looked at Yi Xian. She could feel that although this youth in front of her was smiling, but if she dared to make a move, she would definitely die. This youth would not be merciful to her. After a moment, Tian Han shook her head and turned to leave. Yi Xian smiled and quickly disappeared not far away. Tian Han looked at Yi Xian's back and said softly, "Who is he?" Tian Yen suddenly said, "Sister, not only is this person mysterious, he is also extremely powerful. We better not provoke him." Tian Han looked at Li Qi's corpse not far away and shook his head with a sigh. Tian Yen said in a solemn voice, "This Li Qi is a fool. He clearly knows that the other party's strength is formidable, yet he still deliberately provoked. He has only himself to blame. It's not worth the pity." Tian Han looked up at the demon legion that filled the sky and said softly, "Don't care about them. Fight." With that said, she stomped her right foot and shot up into the sky. In the distance, Yi Xian quickened his pace. His destination was the Dao Mountain. Right now, he wanted to understand these Dao protectors. He definitely wouldn't be merciful to them. This group of people didn't want to let him go even though they were separated by countless star domains. If he still showed mercy to them, then he would be stupid. Before long, Yi Xian approached Dao Mountain. This Dao Mountain wasn't very big. It was about 1,000 feet tall. From his position, he could vaguely see some palaces. Yi Xian concealed his aura and slowly moved towards Dao Mountain. When he arrived at the peak of Dao Mountain, the sounds of battle suddenly resounded from the palaces. Yi Xian frowned slightly. He was just about to enter when the sounds of battle suddenly vanished. Subsequently, the door to the palace in front of him opened abruptly, and a woman walked out. The woman wore a black dress. She was tall and had 3 pigtails. She wore a smile on the corners of her mouth, but there was a vicious expression in the corners of her eyes. Behind her were 10 black-robed figures that held curved blades in their hands. Heavenly fiends. In secret, Yi Xian sized up the woman and the others. These heavenly fiends wouldn't have killed all the Dao protectors here, right? Meanwhile, the woman suddenly looked up at Lin Dao in the sky. At the same time, Lin Dao's gaze shot down and stared fixedly at the woman. Nan Qian. The corners of the woman called Nan Qian's mouth curled up slightly. Lin Dao, are you surprised to see me? Are you surprised? Lin Dao's expression was extremely gloomy. He hadn't expected that the heavenly fiend race would actually dispatch 2 great heavenly fiends at once. Lin Dao glanced at the surroundings. At this moment, the humans here were being steadily pushed back by the encirclement of the heavenly fiend army. Even though he'd contacted the outside world, this place was confined by the Grand Formation, so the reinforcements from the outside world wouldn't be able to enter in a short period of time. The situation was very serious. Lin Dao suddenly looked towards the surroundings and said furiously, "Fight to the death. Reinforcements will arrive soon. Fight to the death." All he could do now was lead them to fight to the death and wait for reinforcements. Nan Qian laughed coldly from below. Right at this moment, her beautiful brows knit together slightly as she looked towards a corner. Yi Xian's expression changed as he hid there. Has this woman noticed me? Yi Xian was just about to retreat when Nan Qian suddenly waved her right hand. Bang! The corner where Yi Xian resided exploded apart. Spatial obliteration. Yi Xian's true body appeared. Nan Qian gazed at Yi Xian, human. Yi Xian smiled, "Nice to meet you, young miss." Nan Qian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she waved her right hand, causing a ray of black light to blast onto Yi Xian. Bang! The ray of black light shattered while Yi Xian took a few steps back, but he was completely unharmed. A trace of surprise flashed through Nan Qian's eyes when she witnessed this scene. A body refiner? Yi Xian smiled, "Young miss, I have no intention of becoming enemies with the heavenly fiend race. I was just passing by, and I'm sorry for disturbing you." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He'd come here to see if he could kill some Dao protectors, but he'd never imagined that all the Dao protectors here would actually be killed by these heavenly fiends. Right at this moment, Nan Qian suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian, and she gazed at Yi Xian in silence. Yi Xian smiled, "I'm undoubtedly invincible against all of you, but if you attack, then I won't hold back." Nan Qian's brows raised slightly when she heard this. "Won't hold back? What do you mean by that?" Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He noticed that it was really as Xiao Dao had said, the stronger one was, the more conceited they were. When he thought up to here, Yi Xian's brows suddenly knit together. "Wasn't it the same for me?" Right at this moment, Nan Qian suddenly vanished on the spot. In the distance, Yi Xian smashed his fist forward. Rumble. The space in front of Yi Xian suddenly exploded apart, and then Nan Qian returned to her original position while Yi Xian didn't move at all. Nan Qian gazed at Yi Xian. This time, there was a trace of seriousness in her eyes. Yi Xian smiled, "Do you still want to fight?" Nan Qian spoke in a low voice, "Who exactly are you?" Yi Xian said, "My objective is the same as yours." Nan Qian's eyes narrowed slightly when she heard this. "Your objective is to kill the Dao protectors." Yi Xian was just about to speak when space suddenly exploded apart somewhere in the sky, and then countless human experts charged out from within it. Nan Qian raised her head to gaze at those human experts, and then she frowned slightly. The Dao Protector Army. Yi Xian gazed at the Dao Protector Army as well. Needless to say, the Dao Protector Army really was formidable, and the strength of the Dao Protector Army was extraordinarily formidable. Nan Qian suddenly gazed at Yi Xian and said, "Are you interested in joining my Sky Devil race?" Yi Xian was just about to speak when a formidable aura suddenly descended from the sky and blasted towards Nan Qian. Nan Qian laughed coldly, and then she transformed into a ray of black light that shot into the sky. The battle had begun once more. On the other hand, Yi Xian silently moved to the side. He gazed at the Dao Protector Army in the sky and asked in his heart, "Senior, are there many of them?" Nan Qian replied, "I don't know." Yi Xian was just about to speak when an ancient voice suddenly resounded from the sky, "Retreat." As soon as this voice resounded, the Sky Devil Army retreated, and even Fu Jian, who led the group, immediately retreated as well. As for Nan Qian, he took a deep and long glance at Yi Xian as he retreated. It didn't take long for the Sky Devil Army to retreat like the tide. The human experts here instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw the Sky Devil Army retreat. Because even more would die if the battle continued. Not far away, Yi Xian was also preparing to leave. Right at this moment, the Tao protector Lin Dao suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian blinked his eyes. Is there something I can help you with? Lin Dao stared at Yi Xian. I saw you chatting with the Sky Devil race's Nan Qian just now. What were the two of you talking about? Yi Xian smiled. Nothing. We weren't talking about anything. Lin Dao laughed coldly. Nothing? I don't believe you. As he spoke, he sized up Yi Xian. I suspect that you're a spy from the Sky Devil race. Yi Xian smiled. Where's your proof? Lin Dao laughed with disdain. Proof? Do I need proof from my Tao protector? As he spoke, he suddenly pressed his right hand down towards Yi Xian. Bang! A powerful pressure instantly enveloped Yi Xian. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly, and he was just about to attack when Tianhan suddenly said, Senior Lin Dao, he isn't a spy from the Sky Devil race. He's a member of my Sky Devil race. Hearing that, Yi Xian looked at Tianhan, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. What was this woman trying to do? Lin Dao also looked at Tianhan. You're a member of the Sky Devil race? Tianhan nodded. He's a disciple of my Sky Devil race. I was the one who brought him in. He's absolutely not a spy from the Sky Devil race. Moreover, he's just a body cultivator. Body cultivator. Lin Dao sized up Yi Xian once more, and his brows furrowed slightly. You're a body cultivator? Yi Xian did not speak. Tianhan hurriedly said, he's indeed a body cultivator. Senior Lin Dao, think about it, that woman even attacked him just now. If he's a spy, why would the Sky Devil race attack him? Lin Dao was silent. Earlier, he had indeed seen the Sky Devil race's Nan Qian attack Yi Xian. Thinking up to here, Lin Dao's expression gradually softened, but as if thinking of something, he looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, you were actually able to exchange a few blows with that Nan Qian just now. You're not simple. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'm a body cultivator. Taking a beating is my forte. Lin Dao looked at Yi Xian. May I know where your master is? Yi Xian was about to speak when Lin Dao suddenly looked up, and in the next moment, he vanished. Yi Xian looked up, and in the void stood a white-haired old man. At this moment, Tianhan walked to Yi Xian's side and said softly, the Tao Protector's Great Tao Envoy. Great Tao Envoy. Yi Xian glanced at the white-haired old man, and then looked at Tianhan. Why did you help me? Tianhan looked at Yi Xian. You're not from the Sky Devil race, right? Yi Xian nodded. I'm not from the Sky Devil race. Tianhan said, come with me. With that, she turned and left. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then followed. Tianhan brought Yi Xian to the other side, and she turned to look at Yi Xian. Who are you? Yi Xian smiled and was about to speak, but at this moment, the blood in his body suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was stunned. What's going on? What's with this bloodline power? At this moment, Ninth Floor suddenly said, it should be a bloodline reaction. There might be someone with the same bloodline as you here. The same bloodline as me? Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Chapter 1033. What bloodline did he have? Madness Demon bloodline. The same bloodline as him. There was only one explanation. There was someone close to him here. Yi Ling? No. Yi Ling was a reincarnated person, so she did not have the Madness Demon bloodline. Here came the problem. Who was it? Yi Xian closed his eyes slowly. The blood in his body was still trembling as if responding to something. Yi Xian suddenly turned to leave. Tianhan was stunned when she saw this. Without thinking much, she hurriedly followed. In the distance, Yi Xian continued walking. He did not know where he was going, but he felt like something was guiding him. Beside Yi Xian, Tianhan asked solemnly, what's wrong? Yi Xian shook his head. Miss Tianhan, you should go back. Tianhan looked at Yi Xian. She did not say anything, nor did she leave. Before long, Yi Xian came to a river. He was about to cross it when Tianhan suddenly stopped him. Do you have a death wish? Yi Xian turned to look at Tianhan. Tianhan said solemnly, do you know what river this is? Yi Xian shook his head. Tianhan said, this is the border river. On the other side of the border river is the territory of the Sky Fiend clan. The Tao Protector once had an agreement with the Sky Fiend clan leader that this river would be the border. No one from either side was allowed to cross it. Anyone who crossed the border would die. Yi Xian said, aren't you fighting now? Tianhan said, yes, they are. All the more reason not to cross the river. Once you do, it will be very dangerous. Do you understand? Yi Xian looked up to the other side of the river. He frowned as a feeling led him there. He knew that there might be someone with the same bloodline as him there. At this moment, Tianhan suddenly said, the extraterritorial battlefield is about to close. We have to leave. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, that feeling suddenly disappeared. It was gone. Yi Xian furrowed his brows. How strange. Tianhan glanced at the sky and said, let's go or we'll be trapped here. After that, she grabbed Yi Xian and disappeared. Not long after they vanished, a figure suddenly appeared. The figure glanced at the surroundings and spoke softly, the mad demon bloodline. How is this possible? Yi Xian and Tianhan left the foreign battlefield, and then he followed Tianhan back to the Tian clan. The Tian clan was very powerful in Tendo City, and Tianhan and Tianyan were the daughters of the Tian clan patriarch. Both of them were swordsmen. In a courtyard, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground and slowly closed his eyes. He was still thinking about what had just happened. Bloodline resonance. In fact, until now, he still did not know what was going on with his crazy demon bloodline. He knew his mother, but he didn't know his father. His father had always been a mystery. Meanwhile, the 9th floor suddenly said, your father is probably not an ordinary person. Yi Xian shook his head, I've never met him. I don't even know who he is. The 9th floor said, your bloodline is too powerful. It's impossible for an ordinary person to possess such a bloodline. So, according to my guess, your father should be some big shot as well. Yi Xian smiled, perhaps. The 9th floor said, you don't hate your father? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, I don't hate anyone as long as my sister is here. To him, it was enough as long as Yi Ling was well. Right at this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and looked at the door. Outside. Come in. Creak. The door opened, and Tianhan walked in. Yi Xian smiled, Miss Tianhan. Tianhan said, it's quite serious. Yi Xian was confused, what's serious? Tianhan said solemnly, although the sky demons have fought us in the past, they were small skirmishes, like training soldiers. But now, they almost wiped us out yesterday. Yi Xian smiled, the ones who can decide the outcome are the people above us. Miss Tianhan, there's no point in worrying about this. Tianhan said, but what if the elites above us are similar in strength? Yi Xian smiled, Miss Tianhan, what are you trying to say? Tianhan shook her head, I'm afraid the Tendo Starfield won't be peaceful anymore. Yi Xian nodded. Actually, it wasn't just the Tendo Starfield, the entire 5th dimension wouldn't be peaceful. With so many elites appearing, if they all fought, the 5th dimension would definitely be destroyed. Tianhan suddenly said, I've investigated you, but I didn't find anything. Who are you? Yi Xian looked at Tianhan and smiled, I'm a good person. Tianhan shook her head, you don't seem like a good person. Yi Xian, Tianhan said, it's fine as long as you're not from the sky demons. Oh right, come with me to a place later. Yi Xian asked, where? Tianhan said, the Tao Protector Palace. The Tao Protector Palace. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes when he had heard that. That was the Tao Protector's lair. Moments later, Yi Xian and Tian Han left. Tian Han and Tian Yen brought Yi Xian to a teleportation array. After entering, the three disappeared. About an hour later, Yi Xian's group appeared on a mountain peak. Yi Xian looked around. Clouds and mist were floating around, and there were many mountains. Tian Han pointed into the distance. Look, that's the Tao Protector Palace. Yi Xian looked up and vaguely saw an ancient hall in the depths of the clouds. The Tao Protector Palace. Yi Xian said, Miss Tian Han, why are we here? Tian Han replied, the Emperor asked us to come here. Yi Xian frowned, the Emperor? Tian Yen glanced at Yi Xian and remained silent. Tian Han gazed at Yi Xian, you don't know? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and said, I drank too quickly that day, and it caused the water to strike my brain. My brain was damaged, and I can't remember many things. The corners of Tian Yan's mouth twitched, and she almost wanted to hit someone. Tian Han shook her head repeatedly, you don't even know how to find a better reason. Yi Xian was speechless. Tian Han said, the Emperor is the young Tao Master of the Tao Protectors, and he's the chosen son of the heavens. The chosen son of the heavens. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. He'd heard about the chosen son of the heavens on many occasions, and he'd even heard Xiao Dao mention it. The chosen son of the heavens, the person chosen by the heavens. This was the true pride of the heavens, and a lifetime of great fortune. Yi Xian said, why did he ask us to come here? Tian Han shook her head, I don't know. In any case, all the young heroes of Tendo City are here. It's probably about the Heavenly Fiend clan. Yi Xian nodded, then let's go. He also wanted to understand this Tao Protector well. Actually, he was quite depressed. This Tao Protector was facing a great enemy, but he still wanted to find trouble with Yi Xian. Did he have nothing better to do? In any case, to him, Yi Xian, if you make me uncomfortable, I'll make you uncomfortable. Soon. The three of them arrived in front of the Hall of Tendo. It had to be said that the Hall of Tendo was very grand. Just the main door of the hall alone was hundreds of feet tall. Standing in front of the Hall of Tendo, one could not help but feel tiny. And there were already dozens of people standing in front of the Hall of Tendo. Although they were all very young, their auras were extremely strong, and they were clearly not ordinary people. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from the side, so it's Sister Tian Han. Yi Xian and Tian Han turned their heads to look. Not far away, a man was slowly walking towards them. The man was dressed in a brocade robe and held a folding fan in his hand. His long hair draped over his shoulders, and he was very handsome. Tian Han said, Dao Ming. The young clan leader of the Dao clan, Dao Ming. Dao Ming walked in front of Tian Han and said with a smile, Sister Tian Han, you're here so early. Tian Han nodded slightly and did not speak. At this moment, Dao Ming suddenly looked at Yi Xian, this is? Tian Han said, a friend. Friend. A trace of surprise flashed in Dao Ming's eyes, and he looked at Yi Xian, how should I address you, brother? Yi Xian smiled, Xuanya. Dao Ming blinked, I've never heard of you. Yi Xian roared with laughter, I'm just a nobody. It's normal that you haven't heard of me. Dao Ming glanced at Yi Xian and was about to speak when a ray of white light suddenly appeared in the distant sky, and a powerful aura suddenly swept down from the sky. Bang! The surrounding space boiled at this moment. Everyone looked at the ray of white light. The white light gradually dispersed, and a man in white appeared before everyone's eyes. The man in white was tall, and he had a sword by his waist. His entire body emanated a faint colorful glow. The Son of Heaven. All the young people here hurriedly bowed slightly when they saw this person. Even Dao Ming and Tian Han bowed slightly. In the sky, the Emperor looked down and grinned, there's no need to be so courteous. I've gathered all of you here to inform all of you that the Sky Devil clan has declared war on Artendo City. Declared war. The expressions of some of them gradually became solemn when they heard this. At this moment, the Son of Heaven smiled and was about to speak. Suddenly, the space in front of him exploded, and a powerful aura swept out from the pitch-black space. The expressions of everyone here changed when they witnessed this scene, and they were prepared to act at any moment. The Emperor looked ahead with a smile on his face, and he had no intention of acting. Meanwhile, a young man in black robes walked out from the pitch-black spatial rift. The man's hair was disheveled, and countless strands of black energy coiled around him like a black vortex. Lin Mo. The person who'd arrived was the #1 expert in the younger generation of the Sky Devil clan, Lin Mo. Lin Mo glanced at everyone below him, and then the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Do all of you dare to head to the Outerium battlefield and fight? A challenge. The Emperor smiled. Why wouldn't I dare? Lin Mo glanced behind the Emperor. My patriarch has said that this battle will be between the younger generation and the older generation won't interfere. The Emperor suddenly smiled. Don't look behind me. I can make the decision. Lin Mo looked at the Emperor and smiled. I've wanted to experience the legendary Son of Heaven for a long time. I hope you won't disappoint me. I'll be waiting for you at the Outerium battlefield. After he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished. In the sky, the Emperor looked down at the crowd below. Everyone, do you dare to fight them at the Outerium battlefield with me? Yes. Countless people below roared furiously. P.S. Every year when you return home for the new year, people in your hometown like to ask you what you do and how much you make in a month. Have any of you encountered that? Chapter 1034. The Extraterritorial Battlefield. In the sky, the Son of Heaven waved his right hand and a spatial crack appeared in front of him. The extraterritorial battlefield opened again. The Son of Heaven looked down. Let's go. After saying that, he disappeared. Below, countless young human experts rushed into the sky and entered the spatial crack. Tian Han glanced at Yi Xian. Let's go. With that, she lightly stomped her right foot and rushed into the sky. Yi Xian and Tian Yen also followed. Not long later, many human experts entered the spatial crack. Beside Tian Han, Yi Xian looked at the Son of Heaven and thought, Senior, is the Son of Heaven really that powerful? Jiu Lu said, it's not just powerful, it's very powerful. Kid, you might not be able to beat this guy. Of course, it's impossible for him to kill you. Your body has already reached the immortal level, and with those god items, it's too difficult to kill you. Yi Xian asked, Senior, is it difficult to reach the immortal level? Jiu Lu said, Big brother, do you think it's easy? Yi Xian smiled, I don't think it's that difficult. Look at me, I reached the immortal level in an instant. I think it won't be long before I reach the immortal golden body. Jiu Lu was silent for a moment, then said, I don't want to talk to you. Yi Xian, at this moment, Dao Ming suddenly came to Tian Han's side. Dao Ming smiled, Sister Tian Han. Tian Han suddenly said, Brother Dao Ming, you can call me Tian Han. Dao Ming was stunned, then smiled, Tian Han, I heard your sword is half a step into the immortal level. Congratulations. Tian Han nodded, thank you. Dao Ming still wanted to say something, but Tian Han suddenly turned to Yi Xian, have you learned the sword before? Hearing this, Yi Xian's eyelids twitched. What did this woman sense? Tian Han looked at Yi Xian, waiting for an answer. Yi Xian said with smile, I have never learned sword, I am just a pure body cultivator. Tian Han said in a low voice, you give me a very strange feeling. When my sword approaches you, it reacts. Yi Xian laughed. Maybe it's because I'm handsome. Tian Han was stunned. Meanwhile, Dao Ming suddenly smiled and said, Brother Xian is a body cultivator? Yi Xian nodded. Body cultivator. Dao Ming glanced at Yi Xian, smiled, and did not speak. Right at this moment, the scene before their eyes changed, and in next to no time, they'd appeared in the Outer Realm battlefield. Not far away from them stood a group of sky demons, led by Lin Mo. Lin Mo looked at Tianzi and smiled. Let's exchange a few moves. Tianzi smiled. Come. With that said, he suddenly punched out. Rumble. This punch caused the expressions of everyone in the surroundings to change. Because at this moment, the entire heavens and the earth had become illusory, and it seemed as if the heavens and the earth were unable to endure this punch. Yi Xian was slightly shocked as well because the might of this punch had greatly exceeded his expectations. Tendo Fist. Dao Ming's expression was extremely solemn as he stood by Yi Xian's side. I never expected that the legendary Tendo Fist would actually be so formidable. Tendo Fist. Yi Xian looked towards the distance. Lin Mo suddenly pressed his palms together, and then he suddenly blasted them forward. Sky Demon Palm. Bang! A black cloud converged behind Lin Mo, and then a black palm that could hold up the sky suddenly stretched out and smashed down towards Tianzi. Rumble. An explosion resounded like a thunderclap, and the heavens and the earth trembled in fear. Rumble. Rumble. The space in the surroundings suddenly shook violently while numerous strands of formidable force shook the surroundings incessantly, causing everyone in the surroundings to retreat explosively. Tianhan suddenly moved forward with her sword, and a strand of powerful sword intent swept out from her sword to resist the force. However, she was still pushed over 30 m back. As for Yi Xian, this force didn't affect him at all. However, he still pretended to retreat 300 m. He had to keep a low profile. He had to keep a low profile right now. Yi Xian had just stopped when Tian Yan suddenly appeared by his side, and she said, "What are you putting on an act for?" Yi Xian gazed at Tian Yan, and she said, "You're not weaker than Tianzi, right?" Yi Xian was shocked when he heard this. Did she make a guess? Right at this moment, Tianzi and Lin Mo suddenly vanished at the same time. In the next moment, an expanse of white light and black light collided in the sky, and the entire world trembled once more while the ground in the surroundings collapsed. Yi Xian gazed at the two of them. Needless to say, they really were very strong. He couldn't underestimate the people of this world. In the sky, Tianzi suddenly waved his right hand, and an illusory white spear pierced through the air. With this spear, the entire world became illusory, and the surrounding space even began to crack. On the other side, Lin Mo's lips curled up slightly, and he suddenly punched out. Rumble. The moment the two forces collided, the entire sky turned pitch black. But very quickly, the shattered space returned to normal, and Tianzi and Lin Mo appeared in front of everyone. The two of them faced each other from a distance of 300 m away. Tianzi had his right hand behind his back, and he had a faint smile on his face. Lin Mo's lips curled up slightly, and his right hand clenched into a fist that contained a powerful force. Tianzi laughed. Still want to fight? Lin Mo nodded, of course. After all, life and death is a matter of life and death. With that, he was about to make a move, but at this moment, Tianzi suddenly said, "I have something to say, but I don't know if you're willing to listen." Lin Mo looked at Tianzi. What? Tianzi laughed. In today's world, experts from all eras have gathered. Whether it's your heavenly demon race or my Tao protector, it's impossible for you to dominate the fifth dimension. Not only will you not be able to dominate the fifth dimension, but you might even be swallowed by other forces. What do you think? Lin Mo laughed. Do you want to make peace? Tianzi said, "You're the strongest of the heavenly demon race's younger generation, the future of the heavenly demon race. My attitude and thoughts are very important, aren't they?" Lin Mo fell silent. Tianzi laughed. Go back and think about it. If you want to fight, I'll fight you anytime. After a moment of silence, Lin Mo turned and left. Tianzi returned to the ground. looked at the people in front of him, and smiled. If there's anything you don't understand about cultivation, you can ask me. Maybe I can help you solve your doubts. Hearing this, everyone was overjoyed, and some people went to ask Tianzi for advice. Yi Xian glanced at Tianzi. It had to be said that Tianzi's status in the Tendo star field was very high. However, this was normal. The Son of Heaven was someone recognized by the Tendo star field, and the Tendo star field believed in Tendo. It could be said that, to a certain extent, the Son of Heaven represented the Tendo star field. About an hour later, Tianzi suddenly looked at Yi Xian, and he smiled. You're a body cultivator? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he smiled, yes. Tianzi walked in front of Yi Xian, looked at Yi Xian, and smiled. Your Excellency hit it well. Yi Xian quickly shook his head. No, I'm just an ordinary person. Tianzi laughed. Brother Xian, you can cultivate your physical body too. No, to this extent, you're not an ordinary person. Are you interested in joining my Tao Protector? Join the Tao Protector? Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Join the Tao Protector. This was not an easy thing because the Tao Protector was very strict about accepting people. In the Tendo star field, there was a saying that the Tao Protector was not a mediocre person. Everyone did not expect that Tianzi would actually invite Yi Xian to join the Tao Protector. Yi Xian himself did not expect it. Join the Tao Protector? This did not seem to be a bad thing. Yi Xian said with a smile, well, can I join? Tianzi nodded. You are qualified to join. Yi Xian said, all right, I'm willing to join. Tianzi smiled slightly, and his palm opened, revealing a token. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared beside Tianzi, and the old man said in a deep voice, you can't be so hasty. Tianzi glanced at the old man and smiled, it's fine. The old man still wanted to say something, but Tianzi laughed. Don't tell me I don't even have this power. The old man did not say anything and quietly left. Tianzi handed the token to Yi Xian. From now on, you are one of my Tao Protectors. Yi Xian took the token and said, we'll be loyal to the Tendo. Loyal to the Tendo. Tianzi laughed. Brother Xian, you are an interesting person. At this moment, a sky demon suddenly appeared in front of everyone. That sky demon looked at Tianzi. Your Excellency, Lin Mo invites you to the Border River. Border River. No. At this moment, the old man suddenly appeared beside Tianzi, and the old man stared at the sky demon. Why didn't he come here? That sky demon did not speak, and just looked at Tianzi. Tianzi suddenly laughed. I will go. The old man wanted to say something, but Tianzi laughed. There is nothing to be afraid of. After that, he turned to look at Yi Xian. Brother Xian, are you willing to go with me? Yi Xian looked at Tianzi and smiled. All right. Tianzi laughed. Let's go. Just like that, Tianzi brought Yi Xian to the Border River. On the way, Tianzi laughed. Brother Xian, you are able to train your body to the immortal level. It is not easy. Yi Xian looked into the distance and smiled. You can see it? Tianzi nodded. Brother Xian, as far as I know, in this Tendo city, there are very few people who train their body. As for you, my Tao Protector has also investigated, but he couldn't find your identity. Are you from the outside? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Tianzi laughed. I won't ask you why you are here. Yi Xian shook his head. I am here for revenge. Tianzi looked at Yi Xian. Who are you looking for? Yi Xian laughed and did not speak. Tianzi suddenly opened his palm, and in his hand, there was an ancient book. He handed it to Yi Xian. This is the Tendo Avatar. I am not good at training my body, so it is useless to me. I will give it to you. Tendo Avatar? Yi Xian was a little surprised. Do you cultivate your physical body? Tianzi nodded. Yes. At this time, ninth floor said, this is good stuff. The value of this thing is even higher than your diamond body and evil spirit dead body. If you succeed in training it, your body will improve further. Yi Xian looked at Tianzi. Why? Tianzi laughed. Just treat it as making a friend. Yi Xian thought for a moment, then kept the Tendo avatar. Then, he bent his finger, and 100 strands of purple gas appeared in front of Tianzi. This is for you. Seeing this purple gas, Tianzi's eyes flashed a trace of surprise. Such pure spiritual energy. Yi Xian laughed. This is for you. Tianzi was silent. Yi Xian smiled. Just treat it as making a friend. Tianzi laughed. Brother Xian is interesting. After that, he kept the purple gas. Chapter 1035. Not long after, Yi Xian and the Son of Heaven arrived at the Boundary River. The Boundary River was very long, and the water was murky. Lin Mo was already waiting by the Boundary River. There was a woman by Lin Mo's side. She wore a black dress and a black mask. Her true appearance could not be seen, but her aura was very powerful. Lin Mo glanced at Yi Xian, then said with a smile, Tianzi, I thought you came alone. Tianzi smiled. You don't mind bringing a friend over, right? Of course, you can't do anything about it. Lin Mo's gaze once again landed on Yi Xian. A body cultivator? Yi Xian nodded. Lin Mo looked at Yi Xian for a moment, then looked at Tianzi. I've thought about what you said to me just now. Tianzi smiled. What do you think? Lin Mo shook his head. You and I can't change anything. Tianzi shook his head. Lin Mo, you're a smart person. You should know that if we continue to fight, both sides will suffer. Moreover, the fifth dimension calamity will arrive soon, and chaos will descend. At that time, our chances of survival will be even slimmer. Then, he turned to look at the sky and said, outside the Tendo Star Zone, there are the boundless underground city, the land of nothingness, the land of immortality, the great barren kingdom led by the undefeatable Arrow, and the divine spirit clan and the devil clan. None of these forces is weaker than us. After a moment of silence, Lin Mo shook his head. You forgot something. Tianzi looked at Lin Mo. What? Lin Mo smiled and said, your core objective as a Tao protector is to protect Tendo and allow the fifth dimension tribulation to peacefully descend upon this world. As for my heavenly demon race, it is to prevent the fifth dimension tribulation from descending upon this world, isn't that right? Tianzi was silent. Lin Mo slowly walked towards Tianzi. Tianzi, you are the heaven's chosen one. You protect the Tendo and the world protector, but now, Tianzi suddenly said, we need to change. Lin Mo stopped in his tracks and looked at Tianzi. You want to change your original intention of being a Tao protector? Tianzi asked, can't I? Lin Mo shook his head, you want to die. Tianzi smiled and said, everything depends on human effort. At the side, Yi Xian glanced at Tianzi. At this time, Jiu Lu suddenly said, he really wants to die. Yi Xian asked, what do you mean? The person on the 9th floor did not speak again. Right at this moment, Lin Mo spoke abruptly, Son of Heaven, you're a huge threat to my heavenly devil clan. We can't allow you to live. Tianzi narrowed his eyes. At this moment, the space around him and Yi Xian suddenly trembled. Soon, countless ancient runes appeared in the surrounding space. These ancient runes were like a cage that trapped the surrounding space. Ambush. Tianzi frowned. At this time, from the distant horizon, an angry roar suddenly rang out. Impudent. As the voice faded, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly descended from the sky. Sensing this aura, Yi Xian's expression changed. This aura was so strong. The opponent's strength was definitely not weaker than Arrow. The person who attacked was the Tao protector, Ping Sheng. At the instant that the Tao master attacked, a towering giant statue suddenly appeared in the sky. This giant statue faced the sky, and its eyes were filled with an unparalleled domineering aura. Heavenly Devil Clan's clan leader, Wuxi. The Heavenly Devil Clan's clan leader faced the sky. Ren Pingsheng, your strength has improved a lot these years. In the sky, Ren Pingsheng looked down at Heavenly Devil Clan's Wuxi. Is this necessary? Wuxi smiled. This son of heaven is not ordinary. As far as I know, he has already reached the rebirth state a year ago and has even interacted with the Tendo. Am I right? Ren Pingsheng's expression was indifferent. You know quite a lot. Wuxi smiled. Ren Pingsheng, your Tao protector is too confident. As he spoke, he turned his head and looked down. Kill. As soon as he finished speaking, the ancient runes around Yi Xian and Tianzi suddenly trembled and gradually turned red. Danger. At this moment, Yi Xian felt danger. Yi Xian was ready to escape. At this moment, Jiu Lu suddenly said, "Save him." Hearing this, Yi Xian frowned slightly. Jiu Lu said again, "Consider it as helping me this time." Yi Xian did not say anything and looked at Tianzi. Tianzi smiled bitterly. "Brother Xian, I'm sorry for dragging you into this." Yi Xian said, "Let's charge out together." Tianzi solemnly said, "I'll hold them back later. You go first." Yi Xian glanced at the Son of Heaven and thought to himself, "Senior, is this guy playing games with me?" Jiu Lu said, "Trust your instinct." Yi Xian smiled, "I trust you, Senior." With that, he slowly closed his eyes. In the next moment, he suddenly threw a punch to the right. Boom! With this punch, the mysterious runes in the surroundings immediately cracked. Seeing this scene, both Lin Mo and the Son of Heaven were shocked. Yi Xian looked at Tianzi. "Let's charge out together." Tianzi nodded and suddenly turned around to punch. Tendo fist. With this punch, the surrounding red runes exploded. However, before he and Yi Xian could react, two blood-red whips suddenly lashed at their bodies. Bang bang. The two of them felt like they were being slapped flying, but they quickly stopped. Because those shattered red runes had appeared all around them at an unknown time. Formation. Yi Xian squinted his eyes and looked around. At this moment, Lin Mo's voice suddenly sounded, "Kill Tianzi first." As soon as his voice fell, a blood-red whip suddenly swept at Tianzi's body. Boom! Tianzi's body trembled, and the white light around him dissipated. Not only that, even his body became illusory. If there was another whip, his body would definitely collapse. Tianzi's face was somewhat ugly. God-beating whip. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. "Brother Xian, if you can help me restrain this whip, I have a way to escape." Yi Xian was silent. Ninth floor suddenly sighed. "Make your choice." He knew that if Yi Xian wanted to escape, it was very simple. Because Yi Xian had the Space Dao, the Black Space Sword, and the Devil's Wings, as long as he wanted to escape, no one could stop him. Yi Xian was indeed a little hesitant. What was his purpose for coming here this time? To take revenge on the Tao Protector. And this Tianzi was a Tao Protector. In all fairness, he did not want to save him. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian suddenly shook his head and smiled. When did he have so many concerns when doing things? Yi Xian looked at Tianzi. "I will hold the God-beating whip." Tianzi nodded. "Thank you." At this moment, a pair of devil's wings suddenly appeared behind Yi Xian. Seeing the devil's wings, Tianzi looked at Yi Xian deeply and turned around. Boom! A powerful aura swept out from Tianzi's body, and in between his brows, a small Dao word suddenly condensed. At this moment, the blood-red God-beating whip suddenly appeared, and at the same time, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boom! An afterimage directly hit the God-beating whip, and the God-beating whip was directly repelled. However, in the next moment, the God-beating whip once again hit Yi Xian's body. Bang! Yi Xian's body trembled, and he deeply frowned. He looked at his abdomen, where there was a deep crack, and the surface of his skin had already split open. Yi Xian looked at the opposite side, and there stood a woman. It was the woman who stood beside Lin Mo, and in her hand was the god-beating whip. The woman looked at Yi Xian, and suddenly, the god-beating whip in her hand swept towards Yi Xian like a bolt of lightning. Yi Xian stretched out his left hand, and a shield appeared in his hand. Sumeru's shield. The god-beating whip directly hit the Sumeru's shield. Boom! The Sumeru's shield trembled violently, and the god-beating whip was shaken back. Yi Xian looked at the woman, and the woman glanced at the shield in Yi Xian's hand, and then said, "Who exactly are you?" Yi Xian turned his head to look at Tianzi, and Tianzi suddenly roared, and the Dao word flew out from between his brows. Boom! A powerful force vibrated from the Dao word, and in an instant, the surrounding red runes directly disappeared. The array was dispelled. Tianzi looked at Yi Xian. "Brother Xian, let's go." After saying that, he directly rushed into the sky. His speed was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the horizon. Just as Yi Xian was about to leave, a blood-red braid suddenly swept across the top of his head. Yi Xian raised his shield to block. Bang! This whip directly swept Yi Xian dozens of feet away. Just as Yi Xian was about to attack again, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, and it was Tianzi who left. Yi Xian looked at Tianzi, and Tianzi said, "Brother Xian, you leave first. Without the array, they can't stop me. You." Before he finished speaking, at this moment, the god-beating whip suddenly hit his body. Bang! Tianzi was directly whipped dozens of feet away. However, this time, he was not injured because a white shield appeared on his body, but at this moment, the white shield was full of cracks. Tianzi's face was a bit ugly. "Brother Xian, this thing has some restraints on me." Yi Xian nodded, "I can see it." Tianzi's strength was actually not weaker than him, but in front of this god-beating whip, he had no strength to fight back. This god-beating whip had a special power that specifically restrained Tianzi's Xian Qi. Tianzi looked at Yi Xian and smiled, "Let's leave together." Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, at this moment, Ren Pingsheng and Wuxi suddenly disappeared from the horizon. When they appeared again, they were already in front of Tianzi and Yi Xian. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian and smiled, "So it's young sect leader Fu Wenzong. Yi Xian, I didn't expect you to come here." Yi Xian. When this was said, Yi Xian's face suddenly sank. The other party recognized him. Ren Pingsheng glanced at Yi Xian, his expression was calm, and he didn't speak. Tianzi looked at Yi Xian, and his face was full of shock. "You're that Yi Xian who owns the Universal Book Room?" Yi Xian smiled, "Yes." Tianzi said softly, "So it's you." He naturally knew Yi Xian. This was the number one person on the Dao Protector's kill list. Wuxi looked at Ren Pingsheng. "The book room is with him, and so is Xiao Ta. As long as we kill him, we can get the book room." Ren Pingsheng's gaze fell on Yi Xian. At this moment, Tianzi stood in front of Yi Xian and looked at Ren Pingsheng. "Master, he's trying to sow discord." Ren Pingsheng said, "Move." Tianzi said in a deep voice, "Master, he just saved me." Ren Pingsheng looked at Tianzi. "That book room is related to my Dao Protector's future." Tianzi was silent. Ren Pingsheng said again, "I know what you're thinking. He just saved you, so you don't want to kill him. However, have you thought about us? Could it be that in your heart, as a master in countless Dao Protectors, I'm not as good as a person you just met?" Tianzi shook his head. "Master, you once told me that we must be moral, repay kindness with kindness, and take revenge with revenge. If we kill him now, it would be repaying kindness with enmity." Ren Pingsheng said, "Ask him to hand over the book room and Xiao Ta, and I won't kill him." Tianzi shook his head again. "Master, you can't be like this." Ren Pingsheng shook his head slightly. "You disappoint me." Tianzi still wanted to say something, but Ren Pingxing suddenly waved his right hand, and a mysterious force directly enveloped Tianzi. Tianzi's expression suddenly changed, and the word Dao suddenly condensed between his eyebrows. Ren Pingxing was expressionless. Why, you want to attack me? Tianzi quickly said, disciple doesn't dare. Master, he saved me. Please don't kill him today, so I can repay his kindness. Ren Pingxing was silent for a moment, and then looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, I can give up your book room, I won't kill you, and I won't be your enemy. We can turn enemies into friends, but I have a request. That is, you must join my Dao protector. Hearing this, Wuxi in the distance suddenly narrowed his eyes. Tianzi was overjoyed, and quickly looked at Yi Xian. Brother Yi, are you willing to join us sincerely? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, I'm not willing. Tianzi was stunned. Yi Xian looked at Ren Pingxing and Tianzi, and smiled, you two, stop acting. If I'm not wrong, you two should have guessed my identity, right? Hearing this, the joy on Tianzi's face suddenly froze, and then gradually returned to calmness. Ren Pingxing looked at Yi Xian, and did not speak. Yi Xian looked at the two, and smiled, Tianzi, your acting is too much. Think about it, we don't know each other, but the moment you saw me, you gave me that Tendo avatar. Is this normal? This is definitely not normal. Moreover, you deliberately invited me here. If I'm not wrong, you actually had the ability to escape just now, but you deliberately pretended to be weak, so that I could help you, right? Tianzi smiled, and did not speak. Yi Xian continued, also, you just said to Lin Mo that you want to change the current Dao protector. In fact, you didn't say it for him, but for me. Please, do you really think I'm stupid? You want to change? You're not the Dao protector's Dao master yet, what's there to change? If you really had such thoughts, you would definitely not say it at this time, and if you really had such thoughts, the Dao protector would definitely not allow you. So, there's only one explanation, and that is you're pretending in front of me. Saying that, he shook his head and smiled, you too, what's the point of all this fancy stuff? If you want the study room, ask me. If you don't ask me, how would I know you want it? If you say it, I know you want it. If you don't say it, who knows you want the study room? So, you have to say it. Tianzi smiled, since Brother Yi said so. Then I want it. Brother Yi, that study room, can you give it to us? Brother Yi looked at Tianzi and grinned, in your mother's dream. P.S. After getting married, there's a lot of pressure. I really want a ticket. But my skin is thin, and I'm too embarrassed to ask for it every day, sigh. Chapter 1036. Haha. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Wuxi, who was nearby, suddenly laughed. The emperor still had a faint smile on his face. There was no anger, only calmness. Ren Pingxing glanced at Yi Xian and said, we underestimated you. However, I'm curious, why do you think you can live? Yi Xian looked at Wuxi, Senior, a friend asked me to send her regards to you. Wuxi smiled, you're plotting against me. But it makes sense, for now, I'm the only one who can't protect you. However, I want to know, why do you think I'll help you? Yi Xian smiled, Senior, don't you want to know who asked me to send her regards to you? Wuxi smiled, I'm a little curious. Yi Xian walked in front of Wuxi and bowed, Miss Xiao Dao asked me to send her regards to you. Xiao Dao. As soon as he said that, Wuxi and Ren Pingxing's expressions changed. They naturally knew who Xiao Dao was. She was someone who had lived for tens of thousands of years. This was especially so for Ren Pingxing. Back then, the first Dao master of the Dao protector had some ties with me. According to the records of the people of that time, the first Dao master of the Dao protector, Lin Lang, was extremely respectful to me. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian, she asked you to look for me? Yi Xian nodded, yes. Otherwise, why would I be here? Wuxi frowned, why did she look for me? Yi Xian said with a straight face. She said there's something good for you. Wuxi's frown deepened. Something good? Yi Xian nodded. She said there's something good for me to look for you. It's not just my good fortune, it's also your good fortune. I asked her what kind of good fortune it was, and she said that heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Ren Pingxing suddenly laughed. Yi Xian, I've long heard that you're good at bluffing. What, do you think the great Sky Demon clan leader will be fooled by you? As he spoke, he looked at Wuxi. Xiao Dao is a mysterious woman. Why would she like Yi Xian? Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm. In his hand was the Tendo pen. Seeing the Tendo pen, Ren Pingxing and the Emperor's expressions changed. A look of surprise flashed across Wuxi's eyes. The brush is in your hands. Yi Xian nodded. Miss Xiao Dao gave it to me. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian. Who is she to you? Yi Xian said with a straight face, my sister. Ren Pingxing suddenly said angrily, bullshit. Why would this girl recognize you as her little brother? You are. Yi Xian looked at Ren Pingxing. If you don't believe me, ask her. Ren Pingxing clenched his right hand and was about to attack when Wuxi suddenly said, she asked you to find me. Did she tell you anything? Yi Xian looked at Wuxi. She said that the opportunity is right in front of her. Right in front of her. Wuxi stared at Yi Xian. Obviously, he meant that the opportunity was Yi Xian. The Sky Demon clan's opportunity was Yi Xian? Wuxi was silent. He was still in awe of Xiao Dao. This woman was too mysterious. Not only was she mysterious, but she was also powerful. At this moment, a pair of wings suddenly appeared on Yi Xian's back. It was the devil's wings. Ren Pingxing's face darkened when he saw the wings. No one knew what he was thinking. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. This was given to me by the devil ancestor. With that, he opened his palm and the Sumeru shield appeared in his hand. This was given to me by the divine spirit clan. Then, he took out the torch dragon armor. This was given to me by the torch dragon of the land of eternal life. By the way, I'm good friends with the mutated beast scripture. Very, very good friends. Ren Pingxing and Wuxi looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, do you know the one-legged woman in the endless dungeon? She's also my sister. As soon as he said this, a one-legged woman who was washing clothes by the river in the distant endless dungeon suddenly looked up. There was a cold glint in her eyes. Beside the border river, Yi Xian said again, do you know the dimension of nothingness? The old man guarding the tomb is my big brother. In the faraway dimension of nothingness, an old man who was sweeping the tomb suddenly looked up. After a moment, he shook his head. What the hell? Beside the border river, Yi Xian looked at Wuxi. Senior, do you know why the elites of so many eras are gathered in this era? Wuxi glanced at Yi Xian. You know? Yi Xian nodded. Let me tell you, my sister Xiao Dao is playing a game of chess, a big game of chess. As he said this, he looked at Wuxi. Senior, it's not convenient to talk here. Shall we go to the Heavenly Fiend clan? Wuxi was silent. Beside him, Ren Pingxing looked at Wuxi. You don't really believe him, do you? Wuxi said mildly, then explain the treasures he has. Ren Pingxing was silent. Explain? How was he going to explain? Could it be that Yi Xian stole them? At this moment, Ren Pingxing suddenly attacked. He directly slapped Yi Xian with his palm, but at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already hundreds of feet away. At this moment, he was already in the territory of the Sky Demon clan, and beside him was Wuxi. Wuxi had attacked. Ren Pingxing looked at Wuxi. You really believe him? Wuxi turned to look at Yi Xian. Let's go. With that, he turned and left. At this moment, the emperor suddenly said, Brother Yi. Yi Xian turned to look at the emperor and smiled. What's the matter? The emperor smiled. You lost a chance to be friends with me. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. You lost a chance to live too. The emperor's lips curled up. You and I will fight sooner or later. Why don't we fight now? A battle to decide life and death. Yi Xian looked at the emperor. Don't joke around. You have a path master behind you. How can I kill you? The emperor said, just the two of us. No outsiders will interfere. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled. I don't believe you. The emperor said, you don't dare. Yi Xian smiled. What if your master can't help but make a move? What will you do? The emperor smiled. If I can't defeat you and he makes a move, I'll kill myself. What do you think? Yi Xian turned to look at Wuxi. After a moment of silence, Wuxi said, I can stop the path master. However, you have to think about it carefully. This person is the heaven's chosen one. He's so strong that even I can't see through him. Are you sure you want to fight him? Yi Xian laughed. I've never been afraid of anyone in the younger generation. Wuxi suddenly asked, what about the older generation? Yi Xian's expression froze. At this moment, the emperor suddenly said, fight? Yi Xian looked at the emperor and smiled. Fight? Why not? As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, Ren Pingsheng, Wuxi, Lin Mo, and the mysterious woman disappeared. The emperor smiled. I've always heard that you're a monster. I hope you won't disappoint me. After that, he slowly clenched his right hand and a powerful force quietly gathered. In the distance, Yi Xian looked at the emperor calmly. The ninth floor suddenly said, don't be careless. Yi Xian said, Senior, why did you ask me to fight just now? The ninth floor said, justice prevails. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? The ninth floor said, you'll know in the future. Also, don't be careless. He's the heaven's chosen one. He's not as simple as you think. Yi Xian nodded. I won't underestimate him. After saying that, he looked at Tianzi in the distance. Tianzi smiled and suddenly, he threw out a punch. Tendo fist. With a punch, heaven and earth suddenly became illusory. Heaven and earth couldn't withstand the power of this punch. Yi Xian didn't draw his sword. Instead, he punched out. It was pure physical strength. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly broke out between heaven and earth. Then, a powerful force shook the sky, causing Yi Xian and the Son of Heaven to retreat repeatedly. When Yi Xian retreated for about 100 feet, he stopped. Almost at the same time, the Son of Heaven also stopped. Emperor looked at Yi Xian and smiled, indeed worthy of the immortal physique. Powerful. After he finished speaking, he suddenly soared into the sky. In the air, he slowly closed his eyes and put his right hand together. A powerful force suddenly gathered between the heavens and earth. At this moment, the Son of Heaven seemed to be the ruler of this world. Yi Xian looked at the emperor without any expression. At this moment, the emperor suddenly pointed down, destruction of heaven and earth. Rumble. A powerful force swept down from the sky. In an instant, the entire extraterritorial battlefield began to crack. The power of a finger, destruction of heaven and earth. Below, Yi Xian was expressionless. His right hand slowly clenched. He still didn't prepare to use his sword. He wanted to see how strong his current physical body was. It was not arrogance, but confidence. Not far away, Wuxi looked at the emperor with a calm expression. However, there was a hint of killing intent in the depths of his eyes. The strength of the emperor was beyond his expectations. As if thinking of something, Wuxi looked at Yi Xian. Now, he wanted to see how monstrous this young man who was favored by Xiao Dao was. Yi Xian stomped his right foot and met the attack with a punch. Rumble. A powerful force surged out of Yi Xian's body like a volcanic eruption. It was pure physical strength. His physical body could shake the world. Wuxi looked at Yi Xian and said softly, "Immortal physique." It had to be said that Yi Xian's physical body was ridiculously strong. In this world, there were many who had attained the immortal body realm. However, he had only seen one who had attained the immortal body realm at such a young age, and that was Yi Xian. From afar, Ren Pingxing looked at Yi Xian with a calm expression. No one knew what he was thinking. In the sky, Yi Xian punched. A powerful force suddenly erupted between heaven and earth. In an instant, the entire sky turned pitch black. Countless powerful forces shook the surroundings like waves. The entire sky was a mess. At this moment, in that pitch-black space, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the emperor. He punched at the emperor, and the emperor also punched at Yi Xian. Tendo punch. Boom! With a loud explosion, the two retreated frantically. At this moment, a golden spear suddenly flew out of the emperor's hand. The spear pierced through the sky and annihilated everything. God-slaying spear. Killing a god with one spear. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.